Welcome. We're going to invite everyone to take their seat. I still see people streaming in. It is wonderful to welcome everyone. My name is Sonia Shorey. I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President, Strategy, Marketing, and Communications here at Invest Ottawa, Bayview Yards, and Area X.O. Welcome to our 5th International Women's Week. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years since we launched this initiative with our community. And today we are celebrating the F Factor, fueling women founders. We're thrilled to have women business leaders, entrepreneurs, many allies, investors, thought leaders, partners from across our region, joining us online from across Canada and around the world. We love our hybrid events, and we are incredibly grateful that you're with us today. And I'm honored to be joined by my friend Steph Reed, Director of Marketing for Elspark. Good morning, Steph.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Is it working?
There we go.
Great. Thank you so much, Sonia, for the warm introduction. As Sonia said, I am the Director of Marketing at Elspark, Canada's largest software as a service accelerator, and we are delighted to serve as your co-MCs today. It is so great to be together in person here with all of you at Bayview Yards. We have a truly inspirational program for you today and our community.
And that program is generously supported alongside all of our fellow International Women's Week events by BDC Capital's Thrive Venture Fund. We're thrilled to have Mona Minhas with us today. She's going to be speaking shortly. Huge shout out to Michelle Scarborough and everyone who helped to make this happen. Before we begin, it is our honor to welcome Monique Menache, Knowledge Keeper, member of the Algonquins of Barrier Lake, and Executive Director of the Indigenous Culture and Media Innovations, to perform a beautiful land acknowledgement ceremony to kick us off today. Please join me in welcoming her.
Pajashig. Oh, there we are. Big welcome. Monique Menache, Indigenous. Kinnikinnikinishna Beckendojaba. My name is Monique Menache, and I'm a member of the Algonquins of Barrier Lake. And I'm so proud and humbled to be here today to kick off the International Women's Week, and I believe month, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. You know, in my community, we had a different way of looking at things. We look at women as being sacred, the sacred life givers, the water carriers, the water carers. In our ways of doing things, within the family, the woman and the man had complementary roles, but they needed to know the skills of the other, because we would travel in small family groups during most of the seasons, and then in the summer we would gather with everybody. But if something happened to one of the partners, the other partner still had to feed the children. So there was more of a, while we all had our role to play, there was more of an acknowledgement of respect and participation in the skills of the other. Unfortunately, a lot of that changed. But there's still the idea that as we regain and reclaim our culture, that the sacredness of women and our role in our communities. I often, when I tell my creation stories, and I'll tell you a brief one in a second, I always say the creator is female. That's just me. I believe that the women do create life. Personally, I actually think that the creator would be someone who would have all aspects of a human being. So I'll tell you that short creation story. We have several in our community. This one is about when the creator decided to make human beings. And so she went to the rest of creation because she made everything else first. Human beings were made last. So she went to everybody else and she said, I'm going to make human beings, but they're going to need your help. They're not going to have, fangs or claws. They're not going to be able to hear very well or see very well. They're not going to have fur or feathers. So they're going to need your help. So the rest of creation all got together to have a discussion. And they talked about it for a long time. But finally they decided, okay, we're going to help these human beings who may not last very long. And they certainly wouldn't last very long without our help. So they went back to the Creator. And the Creator made a sacred fire. And into that sacred fire, every single member of creation stepped up and gave a gift, a skill, an attribute. They say from the white pine, we learn patience. Because, you know, before the logging, there was another canopy. As you look at the trees, even in Gatineau Park or wherever, there was another canopy of trees, another like 200 or 300 feet above that, which is why everybody went crazy when they saw the trees, because they were so huge. And it takes a long time to grow that tall, and that takes a lot of patience. So that's why the white pine had so much patience. And they say from the wolf, we learn about family, we learn about compassion, because if you've ever seen a wolf pack, they take care of each other. And when they're on the move, the older ones lead the way because they set the pace. If the younger ones were setting the pace, well, I wouldn't be able to keep up. I don't know about the rest of you guys. But so they learn about compassion. We learned that from the wolf, and family, how to be, you know, a good family. They say from the eagle, we learn to see clearly. The eagle takes our prayers to the Creator. So we learn to see in a way that's clear and also kind of big picture. And they say from lice, because you can learn from all of them, we learn persistence. And I don't need to explain that one, I don't. So once every member of creation had given a gift, a woman and a man stepped out of the sacred fire, knowing in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls and in our bones that we would not be here without them. We would not be here. And we need them. We need them to survive, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. And we all do, as women, as men, as human beings. And while we have needed this kind of celebration of women for a long, long time, it's in our nature to celebrate not just the women, but our families. And so I would like to open this space, make it a space of sharing, a space of caring, of knowledge, a sacred space, a safe space, a space where you can be free to speak about what's on your minds and what's in your hearts. And I'll do that with a few words to the Creator. Kachimigwich Jemnido. Thank you, Creator, for everything you've put on our homelands that help human beings to live well. We acknowledge and honor the trees, the rivers, the lakes, the streams. We acknowledge and honor the animals, the birds, the fish, and all the good human beings. We thank you for our ability to prepare ourselves spiritually for the spirit world, for when this short physical world ends. We thank you for our medicines and our ceremonies. We thank you for our ability to take care of each other, to bring peace to one another in times of trouble and anguish. We remember our friends and our families who are ill, whether physically, mentally, or through addictions. And we hope they have a good day today and that they return to us soon as role models and as mentors. We remember to reach for the wisdom of our ancestors and to bring it into our lives and to share it with our friends and our family and our community. And we remember to live our lives with great respect for all living things. Kachimigwich, 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 Kachimigwich. Thank you very much. I know this is going to be a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monique. We are so grateful to have you as a member of our community and for playing such a special role in International Women's Month. And really, that month is all about community. Our goal is to help maximize our collective impact on current and aspiring women leaders from every walk of life, here at home, near and far as we can around the world. Now in our 5th year, IWW, as it is known, is building a community that is committed to inspiring, equipping, empowering women leaders in many professional fields, from entrepreneurship and innovation to Main Street business, tech, academia, government, and nonprofits. It's not simply a series of events. It is a powerful driver for long-term sustainable change in our community and for the world.
Over the course of March, we will bring our strengths to bear as a community for our community, to pave the way for women to achieve impact on our economy and society. Throughout International Women's Week, we are honored to collaborate with dozens of local, regional, and global partners who join us to realize this vision. Thank you all for joining us and being a part of our journey. It will take women and men working together as a unified force to drive change. And this is at the heart of International Women's Week.
That is so true, Steph. The objectives that we're pursuing together have never been more important. We know that the pandemic, as we emerge from it and hopefully keep it in the rearview mirror, it's had a very disproportionate impact on women, particularly those from marginalized communities. And this is an issue that impacts all of us, our economy, our society, and our community. Research underscores the need to keep building step by step the progress that we have achieved to date and continue to increase the number of women leaders. Just a few statistics. Just 5% of CEOs, 7.4% of chairs, and 26% of board seats at TSX-listed companies are women. That's new data from Osler in 2022. Over the last 5 years, women-founded startups have never exceeded 2.8% of total capital allocated to venture-backed firms. Between entry-level and C-suite position, representative of women of color drops by nearly 75%. And the number of self-employed women in Canada peaked at over 1 million in 2019, and it fell to just under 1 million in 2021. We know that we're making progress and we're very encouraged, but it is far too slow. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report in 21, it's estimated it will take another 135 years to achieve gender parity globally based on the current rate of progress. Simply unacceptable. And we know these statistics must change. It underscores the need for urgent action to increase the number of women leaders. Canada's economy could achieve 150 billion in incremental GDP by 26 if we prioritize gender parity. So together as an integrated and collaborative community, we believe together with you, we can lead the country and the world on this front. And our team is committed to making significant progress on this imperative with you. We're proud to collaborate with all the champions and allies who join us today, so many members of our ecosystem, our board of directors, mentors, advisors, sponsors, partners, investors, including the City of Ottawa, the Province of Ontario, the Government of Canada through FedDev Ontario, and of course our team here at Invest Ottawa who drive action on these goals, programs, and services with partners every single day. And we've already done a very special shout out to BDC, Venture Capital Thrive Fund, our premier sponsor and title sponsor for International Women's Week. Together, we've established a bold vision to be the best city in the world for women founders and business owners to launch and scale successful, sustainable companies and to help establish the first $100 million woman-owned and led company here in the capital and help generations more, not just here, but across the country. These are the companies that are going to foster thriving global business and tech hub here in the capital, create a wealth of jobs, and attract top talent to our city. But it will take sustained collaboration to achieve this vision, and our community is founded on it. You'll experience this today and in the weeks ahead as we progress through our shared vision with many International Women's events with you. And this vision is what underpins today.
So welcome to the F Factor, Fueling Women Founders. We're about to have fierce, fearless, and very frank discussions on the F words that impact tech entrepreneurs, women tech entrepreneurs, and business leaders who continue to fight through the pandemic and demonstrate grit and resilience. A few notes before we get started. We will be taking questions during the last 10 minutes of each session. For those folks here at Bayview, we have a roving mic that will come to you. For those online, we welcome your questions in the chat. We are recording our entire event today to help as many people as possible benefit from this stellar content. We will also be taking some snapshots and video footage here at Bayview Yards, so please smile for the camera. Be sure to share your experience on social media using the hashtags WeMeanBusiness and IWW 2023. We look forward to sharing today's event content broadly to maximize the impact across our community. As always, we need your feedback to help us continually improve the experience and impact. Our event survey will pop up in Hopin and via QR code here on the big screens at the end of today's event. For those here in the Foundry, we look forward to serving lunch at noon. We welcome everyone back in person and online at 1 p.m. for Better Together, the annual allyship event hosted by the one and only Tusha Angampodi, Director of Engineering at Aurora Solar. For those on Hopin, you can stay right here on this link. It is now my pleasure to welcome Mona Minhas, Venture Partner, BDC Capital's Thrive Venture Fund, and IWW 2023 title sponsor, to the stage.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. First of all, on behalf of BDC and Thrive Venture Fund, I'm thrilled to reiterate our support and title sponsorship of Invest Ottawa's International Women's Week 2023. We've been a long-standing supporter and promoter of a number of activities around International Women's Week. My name is Mona Minhas, and I'm a venture partner with BDC's Women in Tech Venture Fund and our new investment vehicle, the Thrive Venture Fund. My background is as an operator. I've worked with a number of founder-led companies over the course of my career in helping them grow and scale, and I've recently switched gears into venture capital. The Women in Technology Venture Fund, and most recently launched Thrive Venture Fund, launched in 2017 to meet a significant gap in the market faced by women in technology and venture capital. Just trying to advance my slide here. There we go. So I'd love to share a little bit more with you about BDC's Thrive Venture Fund and the Thrive platform overall. We're here to build the next generation of women tech leaders in Canada. And here are some of the key players in our ecosystem. Of course, the amazing founders that we invest in, the fund managers whose funds we also invest in, the companies we're really excited about, and our team of really great investors who support the ecosystem at large. Sorry, I've jumped a few slides here. Here is our why. VC going into women-led companies tends to be low. That capital is very low, and it continues to be low despite all of our best efforts. We've really made significant progress, but unconscious bias still exists. We need a space for women to sit at the boardroom table. We know that they face significant biases when they're pitching. We also know that women-led companies tend to be more successful, outperforming their male counterparts in terms of revenue generation. For example, revenue per investment dollar for women-led startups is 78 cents versus just 31 cents for male-led ones. And that's according to some Boston Consulting Group research we've done. We know women create greater diversity among their teams. We also know that they perform better at a board level. In summary, we're a part of spurring the movement in Canada, in and around the world, to make sure that this continues to evolve. We're talking about not just women leaders, but great leaders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, systemic bias still exists, as you can see from these headlines. It's starting to wane, but there's still a lot of work to do. So we need to work together to remove this bias, to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to receive capital and grow something that is unique and solves problems. This graph shows that while dollars invested into Canadian women in tech companies has increased significantly, it continues to represent only 4% of total capital invested in the market, which is staggering. We aim to change that proportion. With Fund 1 completed, we excitedly launched our second fund in the fall of 2022 as a part of the Thrive platform. So the platform has 3 pillars to create that allocation. First of all, the Thrive Venture Fund is a $300 million direct investment fund that builds off the success of the first Women in Tech Venture Fund. We'll probably make about 35 to 40 direct investments in companies from the seed stage all the way through to Series A and some Series B companies. The second is the indirect pillar, which supports emerging manager GPs with women investment teams. These are women who are making decisions on investments. And the third is something really unique. It's called the Thrive Lab. It's a new initiative which we've just stood up. We made the announcement and we're in the process of finalizing the design around the platform. We'll be working with partners around execution of capital into the market, and we'll be looking at companies primarily in the pre-seed stage, companies that don't necessarily fit that typical tech venture capital profile. So there's more to come on this. Please stay tuned. Our aspiration is to really help build a new generation of Canadian tech champions led by women. We launched with the Women in Tech Venture Fund in 2017 to tackle some of these problems that I've just been describing. We invest in women in the C-suite of the business in a meaningful position. So CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, CTOs, you name it. Any women who are truly driving the direction of their company and who've been in the seat for at least 12 months. With this new infusion of $500 million, we are the largest platform of its kind, which is truly exciting. We provide syndication with other investors, access to capital, network access. We're really here aiming to make a big difference. Of course, after we invest in companies, we like to support all of our portfolio companies. We believe really strongly in that. After you have capital, you need other things. So we provide outside support through networking, through talent, through advisory, and through expansion capability. These resources augment what some of these great founder-led teams are already doing. So with that, here's how you can get in touch. We would absolutely love to hear from you. You can visit us, go to bdc.ca and search for the Thrive Venture Fund. You can scroll to the bottom and we have a form which we're monitoring regularly, and we'd be really, really thrilled to get in touch with you. So in summary, this is what we do, how we do it, and we would love to get feedback from you as well. So to close off, I just want to reiterate again, we've been excited, enthusiastic supporters of everything Invest Ottawa and SheBoot have done to further expand the network of collaborators and the ability of women to access networks they might otherwise not have been able to through the expanded programming they do at International Women's Week. Thanks everyone for the opportunity to be here today to share more about the BDC Thrive platform, along with our commitment to Invest Ottawa and International Women's Week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mona. We are so grateful to BDC for your continued support. They've been a longstanding sponsor of Invest Ottawa and Bayview Yards as well. So grateful to welcome you. She will be here through the course of the morning and over the lunch hour. So for everyone here who'd like to learn more, I know she's looking forward to chatting. It's now my pleasure to introduce our President and CEO, Michael Tremblay, who will open up the next segment of our program.
Mona, 500 million, really? You didn't get a round of applause. I think you deserve a round of applause for that. That's awesome. And that's the biggest fund on the planet for women, is that correct?
Biggest platform of its kind for women. Amazing.
I love that. Yeah. I couldn't let that one get away. So good morning, everyone. I love seeing the building full. It's just great to see this event and to see this persist through the month. It's wonderful. I think you all know that Invest Ottawa is all about growth and prosperity. That's what we do. That's what we think about every day. I don't think it's a stretch to realize that if you limit half of the economy from growth and potential, that you're never going to achieve your full economic potential as a region. That stands to reason, right? And if we're going to grow, we need to have an inclusive environment where anyone that has big ambition would be interested in coming and being here in our city and being part of it. I don't think that's a stretch. And when I think about it, those of us that are in the market already shouldn't be confused that growing an economy and including others doesn't mean we slice up the pie with more slices. It means we simply bake more pies. Right? I mean, I think that stands to reason. And so we're not all about pies, but we like pies. 6 years ago, we set out to blow past intentionality. Intentionality is great. Impact is way better. And to be high impact, it really starts at the top. And when I say the top, I mean the board. So if you're going to change your company's attitude towards inclusion, you need to change up the board structure. It does happen there. And so 4+ years ago, we created a subcommittee of our board to support women-owned businesses. So a lot of the things that you see today, I'm so excited to see Sonia's presentation and provide you an update on the performance that governance shifts can make. And it's not just Invest Ottawa, it's those that we hang around with to help support this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It really has impact when you focus and when you go past intentionality and you decide that you're going to focus and make things happen. It's not going to happen on its own, and it's not going to happen by doing a single day event. It's going to happen because you think about it every day. And while we set out to do this 6 years ago with our strategic plan, we reintroduced and refreshed our strat plan and had full support from our board 2 weeks ago, which has DEI right in the center of our plan. So if you think we've been focused so far, watch what we're going to do in the next 6 years. And I do need to acknowledge some people in this. I have to start with Sonia, who has been the champion behind this. The amount of effort, steady effort, unbelievable. We have Shav Hesfel McIntosh, who's our subcommittee co-chair or chair of that group, and just an incredible effort that she's put in. Sonia will share with you the members of the committee. These are volunteers that care about it, that try to influence so much change and are really active with us, and I mean leaned in with us to make things happen. I can tell you, for me personally, I think about this just in terms of my children. Like, what do I want this to look like for them and for their children? I got 2 daughters and I've got a son, and I want all 3 of them to have a great opportunity going forward. I feel that in my soul. We really do need to make it about them, don't we? I think it's really, really important. I just had a few moments to share these thoughts with you today. I'm going to close off with a commercial for an event that we have next week. So a week from today, my old boss from Microsoft will be here, and I get a chance to do a fireside chat with her. And a really accomplished woman leader, someone that and I haven't had a chance to tell her this before, so I get to do this on stage, just how grateful I am to have worked for her, because she inspired me. I wanted to be just like her. She's thoughtful. She cares about the work. She cares about people. She doesn't make it about her ever. She makes it about the impact that she has. And between Laura and I, we've decided, and we haven't included this in how we've been presenting it digitally on LinkedIn, but we've included a student that's in 4th year of forensic psychology to actually join us on stage. We're doing one of those CEO for a day things. So Soha is going to get 2 CEOs for a day. And so she's going to be hanging out with both Laura and I all day. And we get to hear from her in terms of what inspires her. Because I can tell you, I get inspired by young people a lot. And so having her join us for the day is going to be something very, very special. So I hope you'll join us for that one too. I'm going to turn this back over to Sonia to go through the numbers. We have so much to be proud of and so much to do yet. And I'm very, very excited about what the future will hold. Sonia, back to you.
Okay, so hopefully my technology karma will hold. I'm famous for having challenges. I am standing here today and I have the privilege of sharing a little bit about our journey with respect to our Women Founders and Owners strategy. But as we get started, I want to emphasize I'm presenting today on behalf of a very large community that includes our venture development team, all of whom are here in full force, our marketing communications team, so many people across Invest Ottawa, partners across our region, investors. What I'm about to share is a collective collaborative effort and the outcomes that we have achieved as a community. Let's see how this advances. Look at that, Audrey, you see? Tech karma coming through. I'm gonna get on. Oh, towards you. There we go. Okay, let me try this. I'm going to get Audrey to advance the slides. There we go. So Michael mentioned that we have been on a journey and that we established our Women Founders and Owners Subcommittee with some incredible champions and leaders who were very leaned in. This is the group that comes together. We meet every quarter, and the data that you're about to receive, they help to review with us. They give recommendations. They lean in and provide guidance and offer support as we continue to work with a much larger array of champions who are also very leaned in month over month, year over year. I wanted to open up with a little bit of context, and this has been a big part of our learning journey as we have moved forward together with our community. We are here for all women, and when we use the term women, we refer to all individuals who identify as women. This includes women of color, transgender women, women who are gender diverse, including non-binary and gender non-conforming women, as we know that gender is fluid and can change throughout one's lifetime. We also know that these women have been historically marginalized and excluded from many mainstream programs, services, and opportunities. Invest Ottawa, together with all of you, is making a very big concerted effort to prioritize equity, access, and inclusion in everything we do. We have a long way to go. And we work with experts and consultants and leaders with lived experience who bring unique and critical perspective to us, with advisors and a host of partners and collaborators. It takes many different perspectives and a community to help us drive that dial in a meaningful, intentional way, and we are very grateful. Our goal is step by step to ensure anyone who would like to access our programs and services truly feels welcomed and supported. This is our goal, and we do that together. The strategy that we founded, 4 years ago, it's unbelievable to me, had 3 key pillars: near-term goals 2019 to 2021, to build the foundation, to make sure that we were building a robust pipeline of women entrepreneurs, both Main Street and tech, so that we could help to foster and grow that next generation. Medium-term goals, 2022 to 2024. This is the period we are in today, helping to drive continued implementation and ramp up of new programs and services, enhancements that help to expand the capabilities and the impact of women founders. And today we're sharing the data, something we committed to do 4 years ago, transparently and publicly with our community, every single International Women's Week. And longer term, 2025 and beyond, and I would say we're already there thanks to the efforts of many of you and those who are online from across the province and different parts of the world, to expand global leadership and collaboration so that we can serve as leaders and as role models and help share all of our learnings and gather additional learnings from those that we work with in many other places. Oops, I think I fast forwarded. There we go. Our strategy has 4 key prongs, and they've remained consistent over the course of the last 4 years: to promote women, to help educate women, to equip and connect women. And every single activity, program, service that we deliver, we can link back to one of these 4 thrusts, and we are tracking data on it with our venture development team, with our performance management team. Very, very grateful, because as anyone who is in a not-for-profit will know, tracking of those metrics is critically important. It is also a very big, heavy lift. And one of the context-setting notes I would like to leave with you is that there are some data points that are processed through best-in-class practice of self-identification, and others where they are relationship-based. Invest Ottawa is very committed to moving to fully implement best-in-class practices that will enable all founders, current and aspiring, to self-identify in a way that is respectful, that holistically respects and values the entire individual, and that too is a process of collaboration to ensure that we are not subscribing to a checkbox culture. Next slide. How do we support founders? So I know Nick is in the room, our venture team is in the room. I'm very nervous. I'm going to give this my best shot. Our venture development team is here to help founders from every walk of life launch, grow, thrive, and succeed. That's Main Street founders and technology-based founders. I know Paula Hopkins is with us. She leads our entrepreneurship team. She collaborates with many other people in this room, including Michelle Groove from Ecobia, our BIAs, the Ottawa Board of Trade, and so many others. It's a huge community effort, particularly coming off the pandemic, when many of the valuable Main Street businesses that are the very heart and center of our neighborhoods were shuttered. This particular team delivers programs including Starter Company Plus, Summer Company, lots of education workshops. Our education center upstairs hosts free education practically every single day of the year. It's absolutely incredible. Lots of workshops and advisory services. That's for any Main Street founder, side hustles, Main Street businesses, retails, hospitality, all of those ones that really shape the quality of life that we have. And then on the other side of the venture house, we have our venture team, and they have created something called the Venture Path that enables founders in tech from aspiring, I have an idea, right up to I'm scaling to 100 million, to acquire the specialized support, the structure, and all of the wraparound advisory services, market research, and support that they need to achieve their goals. And we're going to walk through some of the data that supports these programs now. Ignition, led by Erin Siegmiller, is all about ideation. I have a business idea and I need to solidify my business foundation. How can I do that? We offer a 10-week boot camp that is led 4 times a year, and it concludes in a pitch competition. Be here for March Madness, March 30th. That next pitch competition will be right here, and it is always an incredible time. Over 2022, we had 22 companies that participated in the IO Ignition cohorts, where at least one of those companies had a woman founder or co-founder. That represents 37% of the companies that participated last year. And then our pitch competition that I just mentioned, I am thrilled to say that 63% of the winning companies in the pitch competition, we have best pitch that's evaluated by some experts in our community and crowd favorite. Incredible, 5 out of 8 of those winners were women founders. Awesome. We're now starting to benchmark as we are a few years into our strategy. And again, the process of data collection is something that's iterative, that has gotten better and more robust year over year. So we're on a learning journey together with our performance management team. Over the course of the last 3 years, 90% of the 211 companies in this program had at least one woman founder, co-founder, C-suite, or VP. 43% of the companies total, which to me is moving in the right direction. We've seen such encouraging progress at the earliest stages of our venture program with the hard work from that team and our community. And 50% of all pitch competition winners, 18 out of 36 over that period, women founders and co-founders. IO Flex was launched in 2021 to design a flexible support program for founders. I sometimes call it choose their own adventure. They acquire the support that they need when they need it without a specific, rigorous, milestone-based program, which you will hear about next. And it really has taken off like a lightning rod. 79 companies within this program have at least one woman founder or co-founder as of December 2022, and that's 32% of Flex companies total. Our IO Accelerator, run by Megan Maltby, who I'm certain is here in the room with us. Again, just encouraging, incredible progress here. I remember when I first started with IO, I think there was 3 women-led and founded companies in our IO Accelerator. Today, there is 14. This is a milestone-based, criteria-driven program that is very systemic, and it's really designed to help those that require product market fit, helping them to begin their scaling journey. They have some traction. 14 of those companies have at least one woman founder, co-founder, C-suite, or VP, representing 56% in that accelerator program, which I am incredibly thrilled to report. 24% of the IO Accelerator tech companies have at least one woman or co-founder. So again, just inspiring and encouraging progress for someone who has been part of the journey and worked with our venture development team closely over many years. Again, taking a look at some of that benchmark data and keeping in mind that, you know, our data has gotten more rigorous. 19% in 2020 is what we estimate that the IO Accelerator companies had in terms of at least one woman founder, co-founder, C-suite, or VP. In 2021, that number jumped to 29%, and in 2022, 56%. That's important, meaningful progress, and I'm incredibly grateful to Nick and his team for the time and the investment that they've made together with our community to help us get there, and so much more to do. IO Scale Up, generously funded by FedDev Ontario. I hope that many of those great investors are watching online. We deliver this program pan-Ontario with our friends and colleagues at Mars in Toronto and Communitech in Waterloo, and here in Ottawa with 10 partners, our post-secondaries with LSpark, our friends in Kingston region, including Queens and Launch Lab and the Ottawa Hospital. Just incredibly grateful that over the last 3 or 4 years, we've continued to see important and meaningful progress. 37 of the technology companies in the IO Scale Up have at least one woman founder, co-founder, C-suite, or VP. That represents 63% of all companies. Now that's the entire C-suite, the entire leadership team. When we look just at founders and co-founders, 7 out of 59 or 12% of those companies are women-led. And again, that's meaningful progress. It's harder at the later stages. You've got to make sure that you have a solid pipeline at the beginning to continue growing and that it's sustained effort and consistent. Thank you to Patty, who leads our IO Scale Up platform here in region. And moving into the next slide. In 2021, 37% of our IO Scale-Up companies had at least one woman founder, co-founder, or C-suite exec. In 2022, you've seen that number jump to 63%. And the number of actual founders and co-founders has stayed consistent at 7. Of course, we want to see that number grow, and we're very committed to working with all of you to continue that path. Our venture team launched an incredible new program this year. I'm very excited about it. IO Traction, building a pipeline of excited customers. It's more of a bootstrap, making sure that there's great revenue. We had the 10 for 10 founders, $10,000 to each founder over 10 weeks. And Julia Slanino won the pitch competition that took place right here on this stage. That was really led by Aaron and our team. Just incredible work. And it's amazing to watch many of those founders now in our Flex program, because it's a journey. We want to see the founders continue to progress with us throughout the venture path. And we're going to flip to the next slide. We're going to move now to our entrepreneurship services team led by Paula Hopkins. Starter Company Plus is an incredible program that has been rolling with critical support from the province of Ontario. And we've seen very, very strong and consistent traction across women founders and entrepreneurs. When we look at applications, 67% self-identify as women. This is the practice where they actually identify themselves and their attributes. So it is very rigorous in terms of reporting. The company participants, 47% identify as women. Grants, we just talked about capital. This is one of the programs that actually has grants that are offered to those founders to help them continue to build out their business. 48% receive grants, and $65,000 will be allocated by March 2023. Just incredible work to our Small Business Enterprise Center for the work that they have done consistently year over year. Those are parity numbers, and they are incredible. So thank you, Paula, to you and your team. I'm getting so excited, I'm flipping ahead. 4 years of funding for Main Street entrepreneurs through Starter Company Plus. We wanted to put up this benchmarking data. We really do believe in making sure that we're transparent. From 2019 to 2021, you saw a steady increase. And then in 2022, we achieved 48%, again, parity. We're incredibly grateful to be supporting founders from every walk of life, both men and women and non-binary, because it takes a community and an ecosystem to continue driving more women up. And everyone does play a role. And we see that in our Small Business Enterprise Center. Summer Company Plus, an incredible program. We'll be launching it in the summer, again, with the support of the province. Very similar numbers, 43% identify as women in terms of applicants. Summer Company participants, a big jump to 64%, and then 48% for grants, and 30,000 delivered over the course of last summer. Amazing work. And now I get to hand off to my friends and colleagues, Julia and Jennifer, to give an overview of SheBoot. And then I'll be back to wrap it up.
So can I just want to start that those are just amazing numbers. And I'm so proud to have been on this journey with you over the last few years, Sonia. And a big round of applause for the heavy lifting that Sonia's done on this.
Thank you.
And she's going to say the whole team, for sure.
Okay, we have a few minutes to talk about SheBoot, and if you don't know SheBoot already, and you should, because it's an investment readiness boot camp for women in tech and tech-enabled businesses. We are making a difference by bringing together both the founders and the investors and changing the world, I like to think. We'll talk a little bit more about those stats, but this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Invest Ottawa and Capital Angel Network coming together and co-founding this program, which has been running for 3 years, and we'll talk a little bit more.
And the purpose of the program, you heard a little bit this morning from the Thrive Fund and also from some of the data from Sonia, that women founders do not get their fair share of the funding that's available. And our goal is to change that game and to ensure that every participating founder gets the investment that they need. Because we know that the reason that women-founded companies don't scale as quickly as men is not because the women can't scale, it's because they can't get the funding to scale. So that's what we're trying to do with this program, and grow that pipeline of successful founders, give more role models, more examples, and more success, and get more women at the C-suite of large companies because they founded them.
And that will bring more women into tech, because they'll be tech founded by women, and women will want to work there. So that is a good thing. Go ahead.
Okay.
So a big part of who we are at SheBoot is doing what we do, but we can't do it without our sponsors. We talked about Capital Angel Network and Invest Ottawa as being those co-founding sponsors. FedDev was very important to us as well in the early stages as we got off the ground. And now NRC IRAP supported us last year as in our first national program that's key to our continued success. But smaller sponsors are key as well too. Minstrel Ventures and Welch have helped us be who we are and are really key to our continued existence. We're looking for more sponsorship. We're not done. We still need a little bit of help. If you're interested, your company's interested, reach out to Julia, Jennifer, or Sonia at sheboot.ca. We'd love to hear from you, and we still need a little bit more help. Thank you.
Next slide. Okay. And just to show you some of the impact on this, so we've had 3 cohorts, 29 founders go through the
39.
39. I can't count.
Yeah, okay.
39 founders go through the program.
Yep.
And since the program started, they've raised $12.5 million of investment subsequent to the program. So.
Yay, 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 yeah.
And the crossed out numbers was in year 1, year 2, and now year 3, we're at 12.5, and we're continuing to scale that up.
Excellent, go ahead. In terms of last year, some of the stats here, this was a 3rd cohort, a national cohort. What we saw was we grew the team, the cohort from 10 to 15. That was great. But in addition, we grew the number of women investors again, originally 10 first year, 20 second year, 30 on the 3rd year, each putting $10,000 forward for the $300,000 prize money. That's been huge, and it's been a wonderful journey, getting more and more women involved in investing. And getting them investing beyond Sheboot and becoming members of Capital Angel Network.
And just on that, Capital Angel Network, before we started this program, there were 3 women angels in Capital Angel Network. Julie and I were 2 of them. And now 30% of the angels at Capital Angel Network are women.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
the follow-on effect is huge.
Yeah, that's right. On top of that, NRC IRAP has not only supported the program, but they got each of the founders involved and gave them $10,000 of small contribution fund, which has been fabulous for them in terms of just getting their books in order and getting ready for that investment ready bootcamp. And beyond that, last year, thank you to Invest Ottawa staff, Aaron Segmiller, Madison Fisher, and Megan Malty, because they hit an NPS of 90 friggin' 2. That is supersonic in terms of a mark, and I really appreciate that.
And just to go through a bit more on the results. So some of you might have been here a couple of months ago when we did the Sheboot pitch competition. But the purse for the Sheboot pitch competition for investment is $300K, as Julia went through. And this past year, the winners were Fem Therapeutics with $150K in investment, Veritas with $100K of investment, and Imaginable at $50K of investment. And the crowd favorite, who gets a chance to pitch directly to Can, was Compass.
Absolutely. One last thing, because I forgot, and is what we did new this year is we connected these founders at the end of the program with investors, the next stage of investors, the VCs. And this was all down to what we called an investor roadshow. It was virtual, but a fabulous, we did 95 different meetings with investors. And this was all done by Megan Maltley and her team. So thank you, Megan, for pulling that off too.
Because we're expecting to see these companies go on and raise their Series A. And we want to get the VCs the opportunity to meet some of the best women-founded companies in the country.
Thank you.
And so,
what was the last thing?
We're going to do it again.
It's your turn to do that.
All right, we're going to do it again. So we're going to be running the 4th cohort. It will again be a national cohort of 15 companies. So if you or anyone you know are interested, we will be opening applications in April.
Absolutely. And that's Julia, Jennifer, or Sonia at sheboot.com if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer and Julia. And a big shout out to NRC IRAP for generously supporting the expansion of this program this year. It builds on, of course, incredible investment from FedDev Ontario through the Scale Up platform. And I just want to mention our venture team, together with the Capital Angels and all the angels, did phenomenal work. The Venture Path team is led by Michelle Eunice, who you're going to hear from next. And just a big shout out to Aaron, to Megan, to Marissa, Madison, everyone. It was just such a tremendous privilege to collaborate with you on this program. It all starts from the inside out, doesn't it? And Mike mentioned that it starts at the top. Change is intentional. It takes time and a lot of collaboration, a lot of learnings, a lot of stumbles, and the ability to continue picking yourself back up and continuing to move forward. We wanted to put up a final slide on our governance and operations just to show you that we are really doing our very best to learn, to listen, and to walk the walk. In our gender diversity and equity guideline, which we established with Susan Richards and our committee in 2018, we made a commitment that we would drive to make sure that we had parity on our board. Today, 43% of our directors are women. That's 6 out of 14 as of December 2022. 4 of 5 actually of those positions are acclaimed because, of course, we're honored to have Mark Sutcliffe as our mayor and co-chair of our board, as well as the presidents of our 4 post-secondary institutions. You're going to see some announcements regarding new directors coming very soon as well. 64% of our Invest Ottawa team identify as women as of December 22, and that's self-identified data that's supported through the Lunaria survey and an application we put forward as one of the top 100 employers. Big thank you to Yoko for sharing this information. 40% of our executive team identify as women. That was 43% in 2021 and 33% in 2020. We have a smaller leadership team at this time, small but mighty, and look forward to continuing to move the dial on that front. Extended leadership team, including managers, senior managers, and directors, 67%. And this is a really special stat. 51% of Invest Ottawa's advisors identify as women. For context, in 2017, that number was 10%. We are excitedly launching our next strategic plan, and of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, including women founders and women at all intersections of identity, and all of the priority equity seeking groups identified by the Government of Canada will be a very large focus, and we will be counting on you. We will be counting on you to collaborate with us as you have over the last 5 years to help us continue moving this dial. It's a journey. We have a very long way to go. We're encouraged and we are very grateful. Thank you to everyone in this room, to everyone across the country who has collaborated with us. It is incredibly special and impactful, and we are grateful to be on this journey with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for sharing the incredible progress that has been made over the last 5 years. I would now like to welcome Michelle Eunice, Director of Venture Programs, Invest Ottawa, to the stage for our keynote panel.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be moderating the upcoming panel of our program today. Just before we begin, just a quick reminder that if you're joining us virtually, please feel free to use the chat, pop any comments in there. If you have any questions, I'll be saving 10 minutes at the end for our virtual questions and our in-person questions. We've got a lot to talk about, and I'm so excited to welcome our panelists. But just to set the stage, I wanted to note that the 4 women that we're going to be hearing from today have really paved their way to become leaders at some of the fastest growing tech companies in Ottawa. They're here to share their candid advice, stories, and lessons learned on achieving career success and breaking barriers along the way. The goal for today is to leave you with some new perspectives and ideas that you can take with you along your own unique career journeys. So maybe to kick things off, I can welcome our panelists up to the stage. First. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm actually going to turn it over to our panelists to quickly introduce themselves in their own words. And I thought as part of their introduction, they could also share one thing that brings them joy in their life. Maybe I'll start with you, Kirsty.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsty Maharaj, and I am an energetic HR professional, and I am a community advocate, extremely passionate about building better and brighter workforces for others. I am a proud Caribbean Canadian and daughter of immigrants, and Ottawa is where I call home. Over the last couple of years, so I've been working at Rewind, an Ottawa-founded company, as the senior manager of people and culture. And along that adventure, I have built teams, people processes, and focused in on building a values-based culture. A small note about myself also is that I'm a digital nomad. I love to work where I work best. And I just came home from working in Berlin, Germany for the last year. A small joy that I find outside of work is around tea. I know it's something that's very small, but I enjoy the small time that I do create for myself every day to sit down and be mindful and enjoy a cup of tea. But I also do enjoy creating a moment for loved ones, coworkers to get to know each other, connect over some chai. So that's a little bit about me.
My name is Alexandra Sunderland, and I'm a director of engineering at Fellow.app, which is also a local Ottawa company. It used to be based out of Invest Ottawa as well. And I've been working there for the last 4.5 years, but I've also been in the tech industry in Ottawa for, I think, going on 11 years now, and have started my career at Fluidware, which was another Ottawa-based startup. I've worked the last 11 years remotely, and last year published a book called Remote Engineering Management, where I talk a lot about how to best manage teams in a remote first world. And outside of work, my favorite thing to do is go skiing, which is great for Ottawa because there's a trail, if you didn't know, along the river here where it's groomed all winter round, and you can go skiing here at Gatineau Park. It's the best way to get outside in the winter.
Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Odell, and I'm a 25-year veteran of tech, equally split between product and services. My background, I've held frontline through to leadership roles in sales, channels, service delivery, and operations. Currently, I'm the COO at BDO Lixar. Lixar may be familiar to some of you. They were part of the scale-up program here at Invest Ottawa, and they were acquired by BDO 3 years ago. So I was brought in by the founders of Lixar with the support of BDO leadership to focus on two things. One is the integration post-acquisition of two big organizations, different cultures. And number two was to help the founders realize their earn-out EBITDA targets. And I'm happy to report that we nailed it on both fronts, which sets BDO up very, very well to continue to scale that business into 2023 and beyond. So I'm winding down my time because the mission has been accomplished at BDO. I've got 2 more months left, and then I'm looking forward to helping more technology founders on both sides of the transaction realize an ROI on their investments, and that's what I love to do. In terms of what gets me up in the morning besides tech, music. I'm a musician, a singer-songwriter, but I also love music, listen to it every day. Music is like, it's like the air we breathe and water, in my opinion. So that's it.
Thanks, Susan. My name is Shay Cole. I am currently the VP Marketing at a company called Field Effect that's based here in Ottawa. It's a cybersecurity company that is about to explode. And previous to that, I was at a company called FullScript, which is a local success story. I was the VP Marketing there. And helped scale the company from about 20 million to almost 700 million when I left. So great journey there. I am absolutely obsessed with brand marketing and growth marketing. In my spare time, I'm a mentor with the Ottawa Carleton Immigrant Services Association. And I am also a founding member of Lean In Ottawa. The president is here today, by the way, Vanessa, right there in the front. So stop by and say hi to her. What sparks joy for me? I live in the woods on a lake, and it is the most serene way to wake up every morning and start my day. And that is one of the beauties of Ottawa. I got here from my little house in the woods on the lake in 45 minutes. So thank you, Ottawa.
All right. right. So we basically have an all-star group of women up on the stage. So you are all leaders at some of the fastest growing tech companies in Ottawa. And recognizing that the tech industry in general has some unique challenges that women face, I'd love to know, what would you say has been the biggest barrier in your career, and how did you overcome it?
I'll jump in
Yes.
on that first. So I don't know that I would call it a barrier, because I believe barriers are meant to go over or crash through, right? But I would say that the most frustrating experience in my life in tech is people making assumptions about my role based on what I look like. And it's twofold for me. It's being a woman, but it's also being a visible minority, right? So typically people might think I'm in administration or I'm probably no better than an intermediate level resource in the company. And it's not an intentional bias, but it's a bias, right? I'll give you an example. I was in an industry event last year, and there was an executive that I wanted to meet. It was completely a business conversation, and the person entered the event, and they looked at me and looked through me, like there was nothing there. And 20 minutes later, someone else introduced me to that person, and their disposition completely changed, right? Because the assumption was made that I wasn't an executive in the room that needed to be met. So how did I overcome it? I mean, it's been so pervasive in my career. I've been around a long time. You can't take it personally. It's irritating, it's disappointing, but if the reason you're in that situation is to advance yourself, is to advance your company, then toughen up, get through it, and keep moving on. So that's, you know, as women, we're gonna face this kind of BS, I'll be frank, but you gotta decide what's in it for you and for your company, and is it worth persevering and pushing through it, or do you, separate yourself from it? Would be my experience.
Yeah, I'll comment on this one too. So one of the biggest barriers actually happened twice to me, which was going on maternity leave, which I did twice. And it's really hard. We're lucky to live in a country where you can take an extended time off, and that's normalized. But if you work at a fast growth company, even though your job is technically there for you when you come back, it's not the same job because the company's not the same. And the company's not going to wait around for you to take 6, 12, 18 months off. So when you come back, it can be quite shocking. And it is. And but the thing is that women have big ambitions. And but some of those women also want to be moms. And we need them to be moms because we need those smart, ambitious women to raise the leaders of the future. So it really is the responsibility of all of us to make sure that when women take maternity leave, coming back from that is as easy as possible. It doesn't mean that the company is going to wait around for you, but it means that the communication needs to be thorough and that you need to ask women how are you feeling? What do you want? How do you want to be communicated to? And keep those lines of communication open so that we don't have these women who are reeling from the absolute shock of coming back to a completely different scenario with zero communication.
I was going to say something very similar to Susan, where it's not that there's one event that happened that you overcame. It's, especially in engineering, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Like, there are a million microaggressions all the time. And it's not that any one of them is bad enough that you're going to leave the industry and not come back. It's the accumulation of it all that is awful. And it's kind of a miracle that probably we're all still here. And it's the type of thing where, like, I've encountered just so many people doubting me and not being very welcoming throughout my entire career. Lots of people are extremely supportive as well. And it's not the type of thing that really gets better the more senior you get. Like, even last year, I went to a conference and I gave a talk, and someone came up to me afterwards, so excited to ask me a question. And the question was, why did you decide to color coordinate your outfit and your slides with the logo of some, like, not safe for work adult content platform? And I'm like, what makes you think that's okay to ask me? And also, what makes you think I purposefully did that? Like, no, that's so weird. So it never, he asked me for a job after. Anyway, it never goes away. But I think the way that I see these things, like it's easy to see these kinds of events and think like, oh, I don't belong. This isn't the right place for me. But I change it in my mind. So instead of seeing it that way, I flip it and say like, oh, no, I belong here. Like I know I'm good at my job and I deserve to be here. It's these people who are mean and rude and harassing. They're the ones who don't belong and should not be doing this.
Just to add to what Alexandra was saying, to all the businesses out there, what Alexandra said around we're all here because we've persevered through that makes us better assets for all of the businesses that we work for, right? Like we know what resiliency means at a DNA level, which only benefits all of the companies that take advantage of us and believe in us. I don't mean take advantage in a negative way, but I just wanted to point that out, like flip it around and think about what that means for a business that can leverage what we've been through and what we bring to the table.
I just want to say something really quickly, that what I'm hearing is that it doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. And in the conversation that we're going to have, we talk about grit, we talk about perseverance, we talk about resilience, but it really does take a lot of work on yourself to acknowledge that that person that came up to you, they have a whole lot of other biases going on that are all on them, and that has nothing to do with you. And it's all that more important to work on yourself, your mental health, build that resilience, because that is what's going to help you succeed.
Yeah, for sure. And just on the topic of grit and perseverance, when I hear those words, I hear a lot of, or I think a lot of the word fearlessness, which is one of the themes for today's panel. And I was curious, I know that when you're growing and scaling a company, you really do need to have that grit, perseverance, ability to feel fear and push through it to achieve a goal. So I'm curious to know, how have you all built confidence over your careers, and how do you build that confidence to kind of push through when you have these situations happen, to kind of continue moving along?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. Something that I did that was a big turning point for me in terms of my confidence was I changed the way that I communicated with leaders that I worked with and with colleagues that I worked with. And it's this philosophy that I refer to as start with why, right? So you'll find that in business environments, you get a lot of questions that are what questions, right? What are you going to do? What's your plan? What's the approach? But you shouldn't actually respond with what. You should respond with why. Okay, so the formula is first you say what your principle is or what you believe in, and then the evidence you have for that, and then you say what you're going to do. And if you respond like this, it's a huge game changer because it instills trust. And if you feel like you're trusted, you will have confidence, right? So it's, I believe this based on my experience, based on a test I did, based on my research, and so I am going to do X.
I'll jump in from a little bit of a different perspective and talk about like my own story personally and the work that I did within. So for me, I went through this, this confidence journey where I actually redefined what confidence meant to me. And for me, that meant the willingness and bravery to try new things. And for me, again, you'll hear a lot. I did a lot of work throughout the pandemic. And when I started on this leadership journey, I did a lot of self-reflection and turning within. And what I realized was that I had this extremely, I'll use, being frank, I'll use the word toxic narrative in my head that if I'm in a new space, I can't do something. If I have never done something before, I can't do it. And that's a narrative that was, built into me since I was young. And so what I did was I went on this quest to try to redefine that narrative within my head and turn it into something more positive. So since I graduated from university, I kind of manufactured small goals or tasks for me that are brand new to me. And in that, you use the word trust, Shay. I built trust within myself that the more and more I try new things, I tackle, even if it's like a dance class or as big as moving to a country where I don't know anybody and I don't speak the language, I've built trust within myself because I have repeatedly exposed myself to new situations, And I've persevered through that. And we talked in the prep session, it was so inspiring. We talked about the concept of imposter syndrome. And for me, that's a word that I really don't like, because I think as human beings, our brains are trained to seek out routine. We seek out the comfortable routines that we've built in our life. And when you get to a space where you are literally interacting with a new stimuli or a new situation, it's not that you are an imposter, it's that you are in a new situation, you're navigating something that's foreign to you. So what's helped me a lot in building my confidence is building trust within myself that I am fully capable of navigating a new system, a new stimuli, a new situation. And that's really helped me build confidence. I know that if I face a new obstacle that gets thrown at me, whether it is through life or whether it is an obstacle that I've manufactured for myself, I believe in myself, I trust myself, I can get, scrappy, I can persevere, and I can overcome that barrier.
I just want to add on to something Shay said about, evidence, right? There's a lot of engineers probably listening in today, but I think backing up a gut call or an opinion you have of yourself with data, like do your homework, be prepared, and back it up with evidence, will amplify your confidence through the roof, right? It's really, really difficult for anybody to say no to you if you've done your homework and you can present the business case as to why it's a benefit for everybody else. Then why would they say no? It makes no sense, right? So do your homework, be prepared, and it has a complete amplifying effect on confidence.
And super quickly to add on to what Kirsty said, which I completely agree with, I find that doing things you're really bad at is a huge confidence boost over time, because when you do something that it's not that you've tried a bunch and you're bad at it. It's like you start out and you don't know what you're doing yet. I find that the growth curve is so steep that you learn how to do so much of something so quickly, and going from that 0 to 1 gives you a confidence boost in that, like, oh, I can learn anything, I can do anything. And then doing that enough times just makes you feel like you can approach any situation and tackle it and not worry.
I love that. So according to the McKinsey Women in the Workforce 2022 report, we're in the middle of a great breakup. And what that means is women leaders are switching jobs at the highest rate that we've seen actually in several years. And the reasons for this are related to challenges with advancement. Women are feeling overworked and under-recognized. And women are just also striving for a better culture at work. So I think we can all agree, for anyone who has switched jobs or careers, it's really tough. It's really tough and daunting to think about. I'm curious to know what guidance you might have for any women who are considering a career transition or maybe in the middle of it right now.
I'd like to jump in on this one. I don't think that switching jobs should be necessarily viewed as a negative thing. It's completely advanced my career. So if you work for a company and you have lots of ability to learn laterally and advance in seniority, then great. But when you've outgrown that opportunity, then if you want to advance either in your knowledge set, because breadth is just as important as depth, right? Then it's strategically smart to look beyond your current job. So, it's related to what you get known for in your industry. You want to be known for something. So I think don't look at change in your job or your company as a negative thing. If it's strategically smart, then it's positive. It's just like changing roles within an existing company.
Yeah, and I think as long as the goals of the company, you can contribute to those on the route to achieving your own goals, then great, right? But the company's objective is always going to be maximize shareholder value, right? And so that means that as much as, women especially tend to really care for people, and so we tend to be very loyal by nature, but the company doesn't put an individual first necessarily. They maximize shareholder value. That's why business exists, and that's okay, right? But you've got to be loyal to yourself. And so the minute that contributing to the company's goals is not maximizing your own potential, you don't have to be loyal. Go find the next best thing for you. That's just the way it is.
I've switched jobs once in my whole career intentionally, so I'm probably not the best person to give advice on this question. But maybe a bit of publicity for Invest Ottawa. But I think if you're looking at switching jobs and you haven't worked at a startup before, that is one of the biggest like growth career hacks that you can do, especially an early stage startup. It is such a good place to create the type of job that you want and have so much impact on the company and culture overall. And you get to really help create the type of place that you want to work and the type of place that you would want to stay long term. So just a suggestion, if you haven't done that before, highly recommend it.
Thank you. A quick comment from like a HR perspective as well. I think, you know, previously in the older, not the older generation, the old school way of looking at HR, if you hopped around too much, you were seen as somebody who, you know, couldn't hold down a job, or, you know, you were indecisive. There was a lot of negative connotations behind that. But now more than ever, it's extremely normal for people, as you said, to come into a job, do what they were hired to do, right? Learn, grow, and then move on to the next opportunity. So I want to demystify that from that HR perspective. And I do see it like any time I'm in a company, I see it as the HR team's duty to give people a reason to stay, right? Like, especially when you employ top talent, you need to every day give people a reason to say, you know what, I'm going to choose to leverage my talent here and make this company a great company. And I think more and more HR teams are coming around to that, which is great news for everybody. The last thing I'll say on this is that you can be grateful for an opportunity and also be ready for a change at the same time, right? So just because you say, I have intentionally made the decision to move on, does not mean that you're not grateful. It does not mean that you're not loyal. It doesn't mean any of those things. They're not mutually exclusive. So I just want to round that out with saying you can be grateful for opportunities, for coworkers, for moments, as well as being ready for a change.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a step in your journey.
For sure. I think it's working now. So women switching jobs is one thing. According to the same report that I just mentioned, there are a lot of women who are considering downshifting their career or leaving the workforce altogether. So data actually shows that when you kind of tie this back to something, data is showing that women are actually more burned out now than they were earlier in the pandemic, which I find, I was very surprised at that. According to the data, 1 in 3 women have considered downshifting their career or leaving the workforce this year, compared with 1 in 4 who said this a couple months into the pandemic. So I'm curious to know, like, we talk a lot about self-care, and I know, even myself, I don't always put it into practice. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And we do risk burning out and having a lot of negative consequences from that. So I'm curious to know, what are some tips and tricks that you have implemented in your life to take care of your physical and mental well-being to prevent that burnout?
So I'm really bad at this, which is a good thing, because it means that I have a lot of input on like what not to do and how to be better. But so I've been working remotely for 11 years. So the whole like pandemic thing wasn't totally new to me. Like I already knew how to, or sorry, that part was, but the working from home part wasn't. And I was already knowing, I knew how to create routines to make sure I got out of the house and went and exercised and saw friends, and I had all this stuff set up. But then last year got really hard for me because I was publishing a book. I had 3 conferences I had to create new talks for. Each one takes like 100 hours. It's a big deal. And then I had all of these like podcasts and things to do that I felt guilty for not doing because I had this book coming out and there were all these expectations on me. And this was at the same time as working at like a normal 9-to-5 job. And so for all of last year, I was working 9 to 5, and then I'd leave my office in my house, go to my living room, switch to my other laptop, and then open that up for another 5 or 6 hours and just write because I had a deadline or work on some presentation and just feel constantly stressed the whole year. And it was never ending. Like I think the last deadline that I had last year was December 15th or something. Like it was literally the whole year. And that meant that I didn't have time to go see friends. I didn't have time to exercise. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't cleaning the house. Like there was just so many things that fell to the side. And I don't regret any of it. Like there are these diagrams that you see sometimes. There are options like have a good social life, work out, do well in your career, pick two. And for me, it was like, okay, pick one, and it's just this stuff going on. And I just kind of had to get through that. And I think though that it was worth it, and I don't want to do it again. And what I've done this year is like January was a reset for me, and I decided I don't want to do all of this extra stuff anymore. I just want to focus on everything that I left on the sidelines last year. So I'm spending a lot more time with my friends and intentionally turning down so many opportunities just because I don't want to take on this stress, even though they seem like fun in the moment and I feel really bad for saying no. It's just better overall. And I know that taking this break for a while is going to mean that I come back with more energy later on and have more enthusiasm for these things. Because if you get tired out doing this stuff, like if you work really, really hard, you're going to get tired out and burned out, and then you're not going to enjoy it anymore. And that's not fun. So it's better to do little chunks of it. So tactfully though, what I'm doing now to make sure that I do prioritize these other things is I'm setting goals for myself, which sounds kind of lame. And I like track these as OKRs basically. I'm very, very business nerdy like that. But I have goals for like making sure that I use up my health benefits to get massages throughout the year, and making sure that I go to the dentist, and making sure I get a haircut. I didn't get a haircut last year. It was bad. So that's what I'm doing. And those kind of goals, like they're really easy to hit goals. It's not like scheduling a haircut's going to stress me out, but having like being able to check off something and say like, yes, I did it. It goes green. There's confetti or whatever. That makes me feel good. And so that makes sure that I actually keep on track with keeping my mental health and physical health in check. So that's what I've been doing.
I think it's important to recognize that you're not going to be winning at everything all the time, right? You can't be perfect at everything all the time. And so what I have found really helps is to focus on things that are either high impact or low effort or both, right? But don't really, if there's something that takes a lot of work to control, then I don't try to control it. I just shrug it off. So like, for example, one of those things for me that is low effort and high impact is just the environment that I wake up in every day. So I put a lot of effort into making my bedroom an amazing place that is so comfortable and so serene. I don't allow my children to go in there because they bring the chaos in there. So it's a no-go zone. I make my bed every single morning. So I might walk out into my living room and it's a mess and there's Legos everywhere, but at least my bed is made. My bedroom looks pristine. That's something that for me just creates a healthy mindset, and it's really low effort, and I start my day right. So I control what's easy to control.
My daughter gave me for Christmas a 5-minute journal. And I don't know if anybody else has one of those. It's fantastic. You take literally less than 5 minutes in the morning, and it asks you the same questions every day. And then you check in for 2 minutes at night, and you check in on, it's just great. And so religiously, I get up every morning. It's on my bedside table, and I do that day in and day out. And I will never stop doing it because I have no time for like big journals. I don't know how anybody does that. I certainly can't. That is a good mental check-in. I will say, I think taking care of your physical health is really important, and it's whatever you can do given your current state of abilities, right? You can't compare what one person can do to another, but it's important. Cardio, heart health, mental health, spiritual health. About 15 years ago, I invested in a personal trainer, and I have never left that because the accountability, 3 days a week, I'm not throwing money away, so I show up, and it's become a lifestyle thing. And so I think if you have the means, it's a really sound investment in terms of taking care of your body, because if you don't have your health, you don't have a job, you don't have a career, you don't have any of the other stuff. So prioritize that. And the other thing I would say is learn how to say no. As women, self-care is learning how to say no when it makes sense. I also think saying no has to also be backed up by evidence. Don't say no because you feel it. Say no because you have a reason to say no, but find your voice, right? Because if you're subjecting yourself to environments that are not healthy, that are toxic, try to change it. And if you can't change it, then maybe it's time to look elsewhere for an environment that's better for you. But learn how to say no.
I have so many things to add to all the things that you all said. One thing that I want to build off of what Shay said, I have this new thing. You kind of said along the lines that builds on one of my things. It's deciding what I'm okay with being bad at, right? Because being good at everything is extremely difficult, if not impossible. So deciding what you're okay with being bad at and allowing yourself to be bad at that, right? So I remember when I lived alone, laundry was my, enemy, and I was okay with being bad at laundry because that meant that I could be good at other things. So that prioritization was key. And I do also want to pair two things that were mentioned from what you're open and really the last question that we talked through is this idea that, again, just because you decide that maybe a job isn't right for you, or you're deciding to leave a job so that you don't burn out, it doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that you're giving up. It means that you're choosing your health. And you mentioned that, Susan, like you can't get back time or your health. You can earn money, you can earn experiences or work on experiences later on, but there are finite resources that exist, and your health and your time is a big part of that. So I always ask people when they're struggling, I say, do you need a break? Do you need a change in perspective? Or do you need to leave that job, right? And if it ends up being that you leave that job, you're not giving up, you're choosing you, or you're choosing your family, or you're choosing something that's more important to you. So I really want to demystify that. There was a lot of great tips that were mentioned. I also am an avid journaler. I do what I call as free journaling. So I literally, whatever is in my head before I go to bed, I write out all of my thoughts so that I can go to bed not thinking about those tasks that I've got. I also listen to sleep meditations. I don't know if anybody's ever tried this before. It really is an adult version of a story that is read to you, and I sleep like a baby. If you have not tried it, I highly recommend it. And one other pro tip that I have, I call it my bad day routine. So I knew for me when I was going through the pandemic, and just really in your career, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have hard days. And one of the things that I was bad at was that I used to reach for quick dopamine fixes. I would pour myself a glass of wine, or I'd binge watch Netflix, or I'd order a Gabriel's pizza and kind of sit in my condo by myself. And that is what I used to do, being really real right now. And what I realized was that there, again, being a creature of routine, I can hack this. I can create like the perfect bad day routine. So any day that I feel like, I feel deflated, I feel like I don't have any energy left, I just kickstart that bad day routine. And what that looks like for me is I always start with a walk. I get out of my space, I move my body. I usually call one of my family members because that gives me a healthy perspective, remind me that I am more than my job, I am loved, I hold more hats in life than just being, a worker or a leader. I order my favorite food. If anybody likes Pure Kitchen here, I always get a cheerful BLT and a kale salad. Like I've literally planned it down to a T so that when things get difficult, I don't reach for those quick dopamine fixes, and I actually build, a healthy habit that is actually going to help me. It is hard to hold myself accountable, but as soon as I have that bad day, I get up and I move, and my brain goes into that routine right away. So those are some of the things that I do to help take care of my mental health.
Those are great. I'm going to start implementing a couple of those, including Shay's tip of not letting the kids in the bedroom. However you did that, I need to learn because mine are always lingering. All right. I want to make sure that we save some time for questions from the audience. So I'm just going to ask one last question, just kind of rapid fire. What key message or takeaway, if you could pick one, or I don't know, a couple quickly, would you leave with the group today from our discussion?
Happy to go first. I think it's really important that you think about what you want to be known for. Like define what it is you want for yourself long term, like the long game. Right? There's tactically what you're doing today, but what is it what's the journey that you're on? Because and that has nothing to do with broadening or deepening your knowledge. It's related, But I think, and I'm just talking based on experience, I have a reputation of being a fixer. And I didn't know that until a number of years ago, but I wear it very proudly. You know, my network, when they pull me in, they count on me and they trust me completely to help them fix complex problems. And I've developed that with a trail of evidence behind me as proof points for that thing I'm known for. So that would be my one piece of advice is if you can't think, if you haven't thought about it, don't panic if you don't know what it is yet, especially if you're earlier in your career. But think about what it is you want to be known for. So when you're not in the room and people are talking about you, what are they saying? Right? It doesn't matter if you're on the technical side of tech or on the business side. Think about that and then work towards just completely validating that and establishing that in your career as you move forward.
I think the thing that I would want to leave everyone with is the idea that, you know, it can feel very overwhelming to think, okay, I've got this goal and what's the fastest way to get there? But actually, I truly believe that focus is more important than speed. And, you know, there's a lot placed on the shoulders of women in our society. And if you are sprinting 100% of the time, you're going to burn out. So focus on what you really want and think of it as a marathon instead, right? You have to take care of yourself. You have to make sure that you have the stamina to make it to the end. And so just focus on the finish line.
I would say you are in charge of your own career. Like, you have ownership over this, and do not wait for anyone else to present you with opportunities and change your situation for you. If you don't like it, just go for it.
I've got two, if I can. One of them really builds on some of the summary that we've had in this discussion, is really about like knowing your why, like knowing why you are, what you're working towards, why you've started, and revisiting that and go deep. It needs to be more than I want to be a CEO or I want to make X amount of dollars. Like, go deep. You deserve to explore that in yourself and understand why you are where you are, because on the days that it gets difficult, you will revisit that why, and it will give you the energy to wake up and face whatever it is that is in front of you. And the other thing we've talked about, it takes a village. It takes a village to build business people, men, women, right? Like, it takes a village, and don't feel like you need to do it alone. Right? You can create a care team, I call it, right? You know, you made the joke about your hairdresser or a dentist as well, right? Like, there are people around you, and lean on them for support, whether it's mentors, whether it's peers, whether it's people you're mentoring, whether it's your doctor. Just know that you're not in it alone, and it really does take a village to create successful people.
All right, we are going to open it up for questions now. We've got 10 minutes. We're right on time. Emily?
So this is a question from online. This individual is looking for ways to deal with work burnout.
Strategically say no. Yeah, that's the most important thing. And if you're in an environment where you don't feel like people are receptive to you saying either no or not now, then you got to change your environment or leave your environment. And that's all, right? You got to have your health.
I'd also add to that like understanding what success looks like. We talk about like OKRs, we talk about goals. I think oftentimes people try to fix everything and they burn out. So if you have a healthy relationship with your manager, really understanding what does success look like? What are the OKRs? What does definition of done look like? And then working towards that. I think that's a really good tip as well. Just understanding what success looks like and focusing your energy on that, and then saying no to the other things that, you know, again, might pop up so you can focus yourself.
Just, I think it's important for people to really understand the company that they're working for and the culture of the company that they're working for. Like, make sure you understand that, because maybe the culture is extremely aggressively driven and it's not going to change. And if it's not going to change and it's too much, and that's not a personal judgment, it's just not a fit, then leave. Or if the culture is supportive of a more work-life balance, then maybe you need to adjust, right? So reflection, make sure you understand the environment that you're working in, and then make a self-assessment in terms of how you can modify your reality.
So I'm exhilarated by all of your advice, and thank you for that. How do you suggest a millennial or a boomer like myself call people out when there's inappropriate behavior? Now, what I have done, I've done this loads of times, and it's cost me jobs and promotions. So I should have been a little smarter with some of them. So the question is, how do you call them out? And sometimes if I just watch and don't call the person out, I could win the bigger game. Does that make sense?
I'm going to leave the HR question, but I wanted, this is important. I'm so glad you asked the question. I just want to ask all the men in the audience online or here, when the women aren't in the room, please do what this gentleman just said. Call your peers out on the negative behavior, you know, misogynistic, racist, whatever the negative behavior is, call them out on it. It should never have any oxygen anywhere. So I just want to say that point.
Yeah, and also,
the secret is, how do you do it when it might cost you?
Yeah.
And look at the longer game, right? The more I'm in those toxic rooms, the more I could be effective, I think. And I have been.
yeah. And I want to say kudos to you for asking the question, because it takes bravery, but it also is admirable that you're trying to be an ally, right? So I would introduce this concept of calling in versus calling out. I don't know if anybody has heard of this concept. The most traditional way that people think is similar to what you said, calling somebody out in a public forum, in a group meeting, sometimes isn't the most appropriate way to handle the situation. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to do something, and you can deploy this tactic of calling in. So when you have a relationship with somebody, you can say, hey, look, can I talk to you after that meeting, and say, hey, look, it wasn't the right setting for me to address what had happened. However, I need you to know, and then you can share whatever it is that you saw was inappropriate, or that, you know, you're speaking up for somebody else. So I would play around with that concept of calling in versus calling out, because oftentimes, I'm really sorry to hear that costed you, but you know, it's sometimes ego. You made somebody feel uncomfortable, right? Which we need to get more comfortable being uncomfortable, but you made somebody feel uncomfortable. Maybe you questioned their authority. So in that scenario, I would deploy the calling in. You schedule a meeting afterwards and say, hey, look, this is sitting on my mind and I need to share this with you. And I'd like to actually understand what you're going to do to rectify the situation and make it better, right? So try that calling in versus calling out. But as you said, that even from a personal perspective, letting that just sit, whether it is letting it stand within an organization or even just letting that sit within you, that's not healthy, right? So doing something, calling in, calling out is the strategy that I would share with you.
Yeah, I mean, feedback is a gift, right? So you owe it to someone to give them the feedback, but people are less defensive if you critique their actions instead of their character. So I find it's really beneficial to start the conversation with, I assume you didn't intend it to come across this way, but here's what I observed.
And just tiny thing to add on to that too. I find, so for this situation, but for others, if somebody makes a comment that is not appropriate and it's about somebody who is in the room or would affect them, even if you do call it in and don't call it out immediately in front of them and you take the conversation more privately afterwards, I would still suggest approach the person who had affected later in private and let them know, I observed this thing, I heard this thing, I know that it wasn't appropriate, and I just want you to know that, like, I've talked to them, I've given them feedback or whatever it is, just to make them know that you saw it and that it wasn't something that the whole room just swept under the rug and pretended it was okay. Because that can make people feel really alone and like nobody cares, even if stuff is going on, to make sure it doesn't happen again. So just acknowledging it with people, as long as they actually heard it and we're present for it, can make them feel less alone.
I have another from online. So this individual is asking, have you benefited more from working on your strengths or on your weaknesses?
I think I personally have benefited more from working on my weaknesses because it helps round me out more as a person. And so one of my biggest weaknesses was that growing up and early in my career, I was super, super, super shy, did not want to talk to anyone, couldn't stand public speaking, did not want to be in front of a crowd. It was the worst thing in the world. And I still remember my manager at the time asked me to give a presentation for like 30 people internally, and I hated it. And I was so scared and I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't stand the fact that I was bad at it. So I worked really hard at it. And I kept doing more talks because I wanted to be better than the last time I did it. And I did the very scary thing of like watching recordings of yourself talking. And I actually took notes and like figured out, what do I not like? What is my filler word? What am I doing? And so each time I got better and better to the point where it's now like something that's really boosted my career and is very helpful. So I find finding those specific things that you're not terrific at and working on those can go a long way.
I think definitely weaknesses. Growth comes from taking on things you have never done before. And so just by its nature, you're going to be weaker at things that you haven't mastered. So definitely jumping off the deep end of in the deep end of the pool is something that I live by. So I'd encourage everyone. And I think it's important. Climbing the corporate ladder is not the definition of success. If you're an individual contributor, especially on a technical path, being the best in your field as an individual contributor is absolutely success. A lot of the companies that grow would not grow if not for these incredibly brilliant technical people. So define what your success means. And then if you are that technical person, probably breadth of technologies is more important than anything. But jump off the deep end and just have confidence that you have the ability to figure things out.
All right, I think we are at our time. I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for the time that you invested in today. It was super helpful for me. I'm sure that it was helpful for the audience as well. Can we get a big round of applause for these women? Awesome. Thank you again.
That was a masterclass in scaling companies. Incredible. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your leadership and the incredible time that you dedicated to making that panel what it was. To Alexandra, Kiersey, Shay, and Susan, thank you for your inspiration and actionable insight.
Yeah, I think, my biggest takeaway from both the panel and the fireside chat was this notion of no, and how we were taught that no is a bad word, but that really it ultimately can drive change and success.
So thank you so much for that incredible inspirational talk. Thank you to all of the speakers who joined us today. We are so grateful. Thank you for this community for helping us to drive the dial, not just during International Women's Week, but all year long. We do hope that you will stay with us. Of course, we have lunch, an incredible lunch, lots of networking, and then Better Together, the impactful annual allyship event hosted by the one and only Tusha Egampodi, Director of Engineering at Aurora Solar. You don't want to miss this discussion. It's incredibly important, and we need you to be a part of it. And it begins here at our foundry at 1 o'clock Eastern.
Building on today's events, we hope you will continue to join us throughout the remainder of March. And we are during the remainder of March. International Women's Week is with and for our community. We have dozens of IWW opportunities to help women leaders from all walks of life impact our economy and society. Be sure to visit the IWW 2023 webpage, investottawa.ca/IWW, to stay up to date on all the events happening throughout International Women's Week.
That's right, Steph. There are dozens of events created for and with our partners, and a few highlights. This Wednesday, IWD, the same day as the birthday of your beautiful twins, we will be at Parliament Hill with Elevate International, a full day, completely free conference supporting women and girls from absolutely every walk of life, elevating leaders. There are two incredible mental health events, one taking place at Hub 350 in Canada North, largest tech park in Canada, on the 9th, and then one right here with the Royal Ottawa Hospital Hospital, which you do not want to miss. We, of course, have the fireside chat with Laura Ibsen, CEO of Elution, with Michael Tremblay on the 13th. We have Women Creating a More Clean and Sustainable World here in the Foundry on the 22nd, and one about smart mobility on the 29th. Connect to us on LinkedIn, watch our social. We promote all of these events. They're free. We want to reduce as many barriers as possible to increase our impact together with you.
We also ask that you please let us know how we did today by filling out a short survey shared in the Hop-In chat and here on the QR code on our main screen. Thank you again for being with us today. For those here at Bayview, we invite you to join us for lunch and networking. For those joining online, we hope to see you back with us along with everyone here in person at 1 p.m. for Better Together.
Now, I do have one announcement. There are 2 cars that are unfortunately blocking the parking lot, and some folks can't exit. So there's a gray GLA 250 and a white Ford Escape. We're hoping that you can kindly just slip out and move those vehicles so people can get in and out. And of course, please just thank you. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Thank you for supporting women founders, leaders. We can't wait for another year of incredible impact together. For any speakers who were here today that were up on this stage, I want to get one photo with our amazing keynote fireside chat here. So please join us up front. To everyone else, please enjoy networking, and thank you for being a part of today. Welcome back to everyone here at Bayview Yards who's with us in the Foundry, who participated this morning in the F Factor, and everyone who's new. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome. For those who might not know me, I'm Sonia Shorey, Vice President, Strategy, Marketing, and Communications here at Invest Ottawa, your economic development agency, lead economic development agency here in the capital. And I am joined by so many partners, friends, colleagues, clients, amazing, amazing men, women, individuals from every walk of life who share our passion for International Women's Week. And that's all about equipping, inspiring, and elevating and empowering women in every field of leadership. And a critical goal in terms of that empowerment is making sure that we are working together with allies and champions. Men are absolutely critical as part of this discussion, because we will never drive the dial and achieve the goals that we seek to if we are not all working together as a unified, integrated, and collaborative community. And that's truly what the next event is all about. So I have the privilege of introducing my good friend, Tusha Agampodi, who is the Director of Engineering at Aurora Solar. She's a valued member of our Women Founders and Owners Subcommittee. She's a dear friend. She's a champion, an ally, a mentor, an advisor, and a leader in our community who has done incredible work and is certainly building an incredible legacy. I had the privilege of being a part of this first event years ago, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, and the dialogue was so rich and so inspirational. I know that you are going to leave with your hearts filled and with many inspirational moments and a lot of actionable insight from the leaders that she will be bringing forward today. Without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Tusha, who will be leading us off for Better Together.
Thank you, Sonia. Hi, everyone. I will ask the rest of my panelists to come over as well. Please, we have Pooja, Sean, and Mike, who you all know already. And before we get started, actually, I would love for each of you to take 5 minutes and talk to the person next to you and share why you're here at this panel. I would love for you to share with each other about why you're here, why International Women's Day is important to you. Just take 5 minutes. Hi, everyone. We'll get started. Thank you for being here. It's nice to see a good diversity in the audience with us here. We're going to start by asking everyone here why they agreed to participate on the panel. So I'll start with me. There's no moderator today because I very much wanted to participate on the panel. So we are going to moderate ourselves. Hope you'll be patient with us. I'll start with me. So I started the Better Together event about 4 or 5 years ago. Pooja was actually a co-organizer of that event with me many years ago. And my reason was, around International Women's Day, but in general, there were many events I attended that were for women in tech or women in STEM, where I saw great women leaders who were sharing their perspectives, who were sharing their lived experiences. And I do think it's important for women to have these safe spaces where we can talk to each other and validate each other's experiences. But often the entire audience was women, you know, so I was thinking about more people need to hear this. You know, I have a son and a daughter. I want both of them to hear from examples of women leaders, you know, to see role models that are diverse, first of all. And then, you know, I've had colleagues who I respect and care about ask me, why does International Women's Day exist? You know, and you could react to it many ways. I could get upset, and I'm pretty sure I did get upset at the time when I got that question. But what am I going to do with that information if there's someone here who doesn't understand why International Women's Day exists? What can I do to convince them of the importance of it and then bring them along on this journey? Because I do firmly believe that the only way we're going to make progress is by doing this together. And most of the companies are still run by men. So if I can't convince them why this is important so that they make changes at their companies, then we're not going to get very far. So that is why I'm here. I will pass over to Sean.
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. All right. Well, first, thanks for having me, inviting me to join. And it's really great to see that there's a diverse crowd here. And we'll get into this later, I know, but like the fact that there's men as well as women here, I think is a good sign. And again, I know we'll get into this later, but I wasn't sure myself if I should take a seat into on this panel. But Tusha, you know, you convinced me that, hey, this is something required if we're going to make a difference. So anyway, there's at least two reasons that come to mind why I'm here today. The first one is very simple. Oh, they're both very simple. There needs to be more women in technology, period. And it's good for everyone. So I started looking into it a couple years ago, like, you know, was it always like this? And I understand in the 50s when computers were the size of this room, or, you know, the industry was dominated by women. It was more men than women. And a lot of the work is often done on paper and then fed into the computer. And that over time and different factors, which I don't completely understand, it's become very male dominated. Now, one, that's like, okay, I'm already going off on a tangent, but airbags. When airbags came out, they saved lives and they had a disproportionate amount of fatalities for women and children. Why? They did a big root cause analysis, and guess what? They tested the dummies, crash test dummies, on a male, the average male, form factor. With, I think it's 51% of people in North America are women, like are female. How are we creating? I love tech, and it changes the way we live. And if we're going to have products that are designed for half of the population, that makes no sense. Whether you're in it for even commercial gain, you know, with 70, 80%, what is it, of consumer decisions being created or made by women, it makes no sense. So that's maybe my first reason is, if we're going to change the world with tech, we better get everybody in the room and design for everyone. And the second one is my daughter. You know, the other day, maybe a couple of weeks ago now, she said, soccer's for boys. And I was like, oh, like, where did I go wrong and how can I get ahead of this? So I was like, absolutely, I want to be here. So my daughter has women to look up to if they want to change the world in whatever way she might choose. So that's why I'm here today.
Okay, I think you were expecting somebody else instead of me. It was Bree, so I'm Bree's unfortunately not well, so Tusha called me last night and said, can you do this? And of course I said yes. As Tusha said, I was part of the first event and the second. So how could I not be a part of the third? This topic is really important to me. In all of the work I do for diversity and inclusion, I think allyship is a critical focus area. It's so important. So that's why I'm happy to be here to talk about it. But really, why am I here? It's because Tusha called me last night, and I would go to the moon with her if she would take me. And the reason I'm saying that is because just showing up, right? That's one of the most important parts of being an ally. So that's why I'm here today, because I know Tusha's done that for me a million times. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here and showing up today.
And really, thank you for doing it, honestly. It's such short notice. It's great to have you with us. So this morning we talked a little bit in the F Factor programming. I expressed part of why this sort of thing matters to me. I have 2 daughters. One of them is in astrophysics, so she's finishing 4th year right now at Carleton. The other is actually a freelance Shopify dev, so she lives in Vancouver. But she started out as an art student that learned branding, that learned how to build the look and feel of websites, that started building e-commerce, outlets to the website, then became a dev. Now she has a team of 6 people that do dev work on Shopify. I couldn't be more proud of that. I mean, she took it on, she figured it out, she's self-taught, and she made it happen. But I also have a son, and I want my son to understand the importance of everyone having an opportunity so that everyone gets a chance to live the dream that they want in whatever definition that looks like. Part of why I'm here is because we formed this female founders subcommittee 4 years ago. And I realized that as a man and one of the few that are on the committee, I had a lot to learn. And it took a long time to understand. Like, you really have to listen as a man to understand what the barriers are, what the challenges are. And I would wish that for any man to understand, take the time to really understand what's happening in the room. Don't talk for a while, learn it, think about it, and then spend enough time on this topic so that you can be informed and be part of the conversation. So what I wish for all the men in the room and those that we need to recruit for the next one, to understand the importance, get in the conversation, learn it, and ensure that we're making a change. Because it's not going to happen on its own. It's something that we all have to commit to, we all have to be part of, and we all have to make happen. That's why I'm here today, Pooja and Thusha, and Sean.
I can talk about when I first started putting this event together. We looked at why aren't there men in the events when we have gender equity events? What is stopping them from participating or attending? So I have in my network, there's lots of men in my network having gone through engineering and having worked in the tech industry for a very long time. So I started by asking my colleagues, like, what makes you hesitate from attending these events? And some of the feedback I got was, they might not feel welcome to these events. Do you want to hear what we have to say? Or am I going to be attacked for giving my input? So those are some of the words that I heard when I asked the men in my network. And then we worked really hard in terms of the marketing for the event. How do we word this to get more, everyone to come? So I'm curious to hear from all of you about, did you have any hesitations when it comes to joining this event or other events in the past that you were asked to join?
Okay, I'll be honest, and I was alluding to it earlier in that. So I had I understand there's 4 seats on a panel or however many there is, and I didn't want to take a voice away from someone else who were trying to put a bit of the focus on. And so I definitely hesitated, and I had a similar experience in the past where in a previous life I was asked to join a series of judges to judge an all-female hackathon. And that one I did decline because I thought it wouldn't be the right way, and I helped from the back. But I think what changed my mind this time was that, you know, as you were teaching me, like, being part of the conversation and showing support is important, and that we all have something to learn from each other and to navigate a future where there is equality. And so that helped me get over the hump to make it over here.
I can jump on there. For the longest time, we, as a company, we get involved in a lot of different panels, and we get a lot involved in a variety of topics, whether it's cybersecurity, software as a service, diversity, so a really wide range. And something I learned early from the subcommittee that we got onto was you have to be sensitive to making sure that there is a seat at the table for panels for everyone. And so to your point, Sean, it's important that you make sure there's space. But it's important that men are on these panels too. I actually think that diversity of opinion is important. What doesn't work, and anybody at Invest Ottawa will know this, is we will not be on a panel unless it's diverse. We won't do it. You won't see it happen because we don't do it. And it's to make the simple point that if a topic is important enough to discuss, it should be something that should be open to everyone. And the only way to ensure that is to make sure that the panel itself is diverse. Now, what we will do as a company is we'll lean in and find other panelists, because as much as perhaps early on I might have believed I was the only one that could deliver something, we just happen to have some really smart women in our company too that are in pretty good position to represent what we do. And that is true in everything that's out there. So don't kid yourself. It shouldn't just be men. It should be women too. But it should be men and women on panels. I think that's really, really important. If you want to really carry forward with this idea of true diversity, you need to have that variance of opinions. Without it, you're not going to understand the full story. You're only going to get pieces of it. And that's the point of it, I think.
Maybe I can ask both of you, because I know you organized some other things in the past, and well, you organized this one. Like, at what point did you, like, or was it from the beginning that you were striving for more diversity in sort of an event focused on women? Was it always there? Was it something that, you know, made you realize, no, I have to prioritize this a little more? And how hard is it to get men out to these events?
You want to take this, Pooja?
Okay, sure. So it's a really good question, right? And it's something I've tried to figure out with a larger group. So we do a lot of work at my company as well as in our industries with different communities. And what we've realized is that there's an opportunity for both. So we need to create safe spaces for women when we're talking about certain issues. So we do that, but it has to be in combination with initiatives that bring all genders together. You can't just have one, right? And I think, Mike, like you were saying, it's the diversity of thought and so on. So I think we realized that really early on, because, I mean, there's no way to create that change. And we talk about it all the time, right? That's why, it's still sad, like Tisha said, when we say it's International Women's Day, let's have an event for women. No, it's actually more important that the men are there so that we can increase awareness and so on. So I think it was something we knew very early on, that if we have to create change, it's not just our responsibility, right? It's not just up to the women. It's everyone who needs to be a part of it. But to actually make that happen, I think that's the challenging part. Initially, the way I did it is I just didn't give them a choice, right? I said, you have to show up. But why do we give people a choice when it comes to this? When it comes to safety training or security training, do we give people a choice? Is it optional? No. So why is this optional? This is equally important, right? How we treat people is, I think, an even more important training program for all employees. So that's kind of how I treated it, was I'm not giving you a choice. You have to show up irrespective of your gender. And then I came up with tactics to keep them there. And I'll talk about that later.
I think Pooja covered it, so I don't have more to add to that. We worked really hard. Yeah, we did the first one. I think we did it invite only. So we told the women in our network, please invite 2 men from your professional network to come with you. And that helped because then it was by invite, they felt welcomed, and that was important. You know, and then for my coworkers, though, I didn't really give them a choice. I was like, you have to come. I still don't give them a choice, so some of them are here. Because it's really important. Inclusion, I think, it benefits everyone. You know, if we do it right, when it comes to inclusion, creating inclusive environments, it means everyone's ideas will be heard equally, and it should benefit everyone. So it's really important.
Are there, like when you're having an honest conversation with maybe your coworkers, your friends who are men, do you get a certain, is like a theme of like maybe why they're hesitating to come? Or do you always get like, I can't say no to Tusha, I'm there?
You'll have to ask them. That's a good question. I mean, you know, I can talk about as a leader at my company, when I'm focusing on initiatives for anyone who's underrepresented, whether it's people of color or women or, you know, anyone, my teams, you know, comprise of diversity group of individuals. And it's important to me that they understand that I care about all of them equally. That's really, really important to me. So I look at our DEI surveys that we do. I look at the engagement surveys. And when there are comments, sometimes we get these, when there are comments that show that one group of or another might be starting to feel less invited to this conversation, that's not okay with me. It's important to me as a leader that everyone understands how much I care about everyone equally. If we're focusing on underrepresented parts of the population, it's because it's to create equity. That's all it is. You know, so I work really hard. We had this where, you know, in one of the engagement surveys, there was feedback about, as a white male, I'm not a target for promotion, something like that, you know. That was really hard to hear because we work very hard to make sure everyone gets promoted equally. But if there's someone who feels otherwise, I thought about what can we do to make sure everyone understands. So we're like, okay, alongside all of the investment that we're making to our DEI initiatives, we need to have a few presentations to talk to everybody at the company about why is this important. Here is why we do what we do, because they don't have the same lived experiences. If you've never been in a room where you've been underrepresented, you don't know what that feels like to share your opinion. You know, you don't. So if you don't know, we can't hold it against you. We just need to talk about our experiences, invite you to come and listen so that we kind of share our perspectives and, you know, educate everyone more.
So an interesting example I can sprinkle on this one that might, hopefully this will spawn a bit of conversation here. I'm 61. I'm a white Caucasian male. I've been on boards for 25 years, and I've applied to boards recently, and I'm finding it struggling to actually get on boards now. And the reason is because I'm a 61-year-old white Caucasian male. But after you understand and look at the composition of boards, it's important that there are diverse people around the table. It's not just about the professional skill. It's also about gender. It's also about race. All of these things matter around the board table in order to make good decisions. And so once, as a male, after you get over that part and you kind of pull back and look at it, it turned out the way it was supposed to. And you realize that that pendulum has been so far over for so long, it had to come back. And I went through a few of them and I thought, wow, I thought for sure I would be considered, and I didn't even get an interview, right? And for me, I'm laughing, but at the time it didn't feel very right. And then I thought, it's probably not felt very right for women for a very long time, right? And that was an important thing for me to actually go through a couple of times. And in the end, it landed the way it should have. And the women that were selected that were on these boards, that are on these boards today, are excellent. They're really strong. They're going to add a lot of value to that discussion in a way that I couldn't. And once you get over that piece, it's actually a good learning for a man that's 61 years old and is white. It's a good learning. It's an important learning.
I can add to that, you know, because when we talked about it in our prep session, and anytime if you feel like you were passed for an opportunity, or especially, you know, if you hear from a man, I think as women, like in my head, I was thinking, well, no, you know what it feels like, you know, but we talked about in our prep session how that's not constructive. You know, we know what that feels like. How do we move forward and support each other in terms of, you know, when you talk about opportunities, we're not taking opportunities away. We're trying to create more opportunities for everyone. I want to hear Sean and Pooja's perspectives on this for sure.
Okay, here we go. Actually, you're reminding me, so I'm going to dig into an example that I had with some colleagues in the last, let's say, couple of years. There was a fella at work, and he was a white Caucasian, fairly senior in his, he'd been at the company a while, like I'm talking 15 years, I think. And he thought he would be next in line as the spot opened up, and he didn't get that role. He got it. A woman got that role, and you know, he felt like, hey, did I not get that because of my gender? I think he was convinced of that, and you know, I think I've seen other men feel that way as well, and I think sometimes it can be like I don't believe you want to put someone in the role only because they're from an underrepresented group, right? And I've heard you and other female colleagues say, like, I don't want to be a token. Like I've worked really hard for where I want to, like I want to earn my way here, and I want an equal opportunity for it. And I think we all as leaders need to focus on like the transparency of how we make these decisions, not only because of the merit, but also diversity for an organization is healthy. And I think that last part is the one that gets missed often in at least these conversations that I'm alluding to with other men. Because they don't see that actually the best thing for the company is to have a diverse view. Just like back to the airbag story or what have you, is if you, or your, you know, the boards that you're on, it's hard to make a decision. Like, you can even look at it as in the best interest of the company to have a diverse spot. And you might not see that as an engineer who missed out an opportunity, but the bigger picture, you know, if you can see that, I think they can better understand.
Yeah, we talked about this. You don't see, like, if it's better for the company to have a diverse leadership team for many reasons. You know, the data talks about how profit increases and innovation increases, but also when it comes to hiring and recruitment. If you're trying in the, you know, the war for talent, if you're trying to broaden your pipeline, having a diverse leadership team is really helpful. So there's many reasons why the company might have made that decision, but no company should be promoting anyone to any position unless they're qualified for it, because of course then you're setting that person up for failure, and that's, you know, that's not great for anyone. I certainly wouldn't want to be in that situation. I'll pass over to Pooja.
Okay, I think there's a lot to unpack here, right? As I'm listening. I think I'm going to start with, first of all, like 5 years ago, I don't think we were hearing that, right? That men are being passed over for promotions. So I think it's great that, okay, at least 5 years later, now that's what we're talking about. I want to take that as a sign of improvement, but the stats don't support it, right? We're still, 3% of women in C-suite leaders. I want to meet these men who feel they're getting passed over, because that's something that's maybe they have better pipelines than I do or I'm seeing, right? So I think first of all, that's where the education and the awareness needs to be, is that the stats do not support it. men are still twice as likely to be promoted, right? So there's a big difference here. But I think the second part of it is, you know, what you guys were talking about is about the qualification. I think that's what really needs to change at a fundamental level, is how we define who is qualified for a certain role. We look at a resume, we say it's so many years of experience and, you know, in these positions, but that's not what delivers, right? At the end of the day, we have to look at, you know, when we bring in diversity into the picture, you know, you talked about it, Mike, you said, okay, it's not just professional qualifications, it's also race and gender brings different perspectives. It's not just that, it's the results. Women lead teams better. I'm not saying that, and there are stats to prove this, right? I'm not saying that every manager needs to be a woman, but it shows like that should be part of the qualification that we consider, right? It's part of the overall picture when we look at someone. So I think that's where we really need to change as a society, is how we look at the qualification of somebody. And so, you know, when we talk about token hires and so on, yes, maybe somebody is not fully qualified in the traditional sense of it, but there is different potential that they bring to the table, which is why then it's equal from a different lens, right? So I think that's fundamentally something we all need to change when we think of qualification. And then the third part is what you were talking about, is that the long-term picture, right? Is if we have more diversity and inclusion, we will actually be creating more jobs, we will be improving the economy. It makes total business sense to do it. So the leaders who are complaining about it are not qualified to be in the role they are, because they're not thinking strategically.
When you were talking about, you know, like what are better ways to evaluate somebody's fit for a role and not just years of experience, I agree, and I would borrow from you, Mike, on like, I think diversity of thought. You know, like I can imagine a world one day where it really isn't trying to equalize around every dimension of diversity, be it race or height or like, you know, there's too many to really to solve for, and I think we have to deal with those things now. But really, I think I look to diversity of thought to bring sort of like the most benefit in the end of the day to an organization. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, yes, I completely agree in that sense. But, you know, I think there are ways to actually quantify that, right? So, you know, some of the things I was talking about, there's a lot of stats out there that show, you know, okay, these are the strengths that a woman may bring to the table, or these are the strengths that certain soft skills bring to the table, right? We always tend to kind of put soft skills at the end of the resume, or maybe not even, or we have certain interview questions around that. But how do we emphasize those more, and how do we add more value to that, right? When we're trying to evaluate people I mean, especially as leaders, we all know that's the most important part, is how can you lead a team? So how do we evaluate that better and give people more of an equal platform to evaluate that on?
And even just the term, I've changed this at my organization, just labeling of it as soft skills. It's like, these are behavioral skills. They're not soft skills. Let's just change how we talk about that. They're very necessary, especially in leadership levels, but they're not valued equally, you know? So that's really important as well.
Maybe I could add a couple of things here. So there's a saying that goes, your qualifications get you hired and your behavior gets you fired. And so I say that because I've actually worked for some great and terrible men and women. And it's not like one gender will necessarily give you a great leadership experience. Like, it really comes down to the individual too. So you've got to watch for that. But I wanted to share an experience we had as a company when we went through the pandemic. We delivered a lot of services that we hadn't done before because there was a business need in the marketplace to help companies actually survive that period. And one of the things that we did was something called Digital Main Street, which included getting students to help support Shopify deployments, that kind of stuff. And what we discovered after doing this for only 15 months, we hired 300 students. We had an extra 30 coaches and mentors that we deployed, and we touched 1,700 businesses. This was everything from helping to bolt on an e-commerce channel, which is probably the simplest growth hack to keep a company alive, is to give them a different way to sell their stuff, but also to be discoverable through search engine optimization. So we did those two basic things were the major staple of the play. And when we did the survey work, we discovered that roughly 70% were self-identified leaders and owners that would consider themselves from marginalized communities. We wouldn't have known that had we not been pushed down a path that we hadn't been before. And we're an economic development agency. Like we have an accountability, a responsibility to be available to a wide variety of companies. These businesses wouldn't have thought to talk to us before that. Certainly not all of them. I think some of them, yes. But it opened up for us the importance of making sure we had coverage. And it was really a meaningful experience for me to understand why our company, our people, and our board need to be diverse as well. Because we would not have made contact with any of these businesses, or certainly the majority of those businesses, were it not for a pandemic. And that shouldn't be the case. So diversity matters when it comes to serving markets and even being considered by those markets, because many of the founders that we worked with would not have come to find us. We had to go discover them and really help them find that there was an immediate opportunity. And it was almost like a survival instinct for the business that made that connection happen. And that to me is unfortunate, but it's a learning for us that we can carry forward with, and we are.
You know, like I can relate to you in a little bit in that, so where I'm at now, we try to help entrepreneurship around the world, but you know, entrepreneurship takes so many different faces and so many different cultures and different economies. You have different brands reaching different demographics. And so, you know, we've tried to move our like hiring pipeline to be like geodiverse so we can understand how do we design something that is going to fit a wide variety of, frankly, commerce from different people. And now is a time, like especially accelerated by the pandemic, that you can change where you hire, who you hire. And like now it really doesn't feel like any part of the world is off limits to hire, or very few places. So I'm hoping a lot of companies move in that direction.
I wanted to add something to the diversity of thought. There's a study that talk about, you know, if you have a room that's mostly homogenous, like, you know, very similar, and you add like one diverse member, diversity that you can see actually, the room, everyone else in the room also suddenly will start sharing different ideas because they can see that diversity is more welcome and more accepted, you know. But then, you know, there's studies that talk about 30% is about the tipping point. So adding one isn't enough really to hear from that underrepresented person or that category to make it a comfortable experience for them. You really need to get to about 30%, and there's a few studies that's done around that. So, you know, if you are a company that's trying to innovate, trying to get diversity of thought, you're going to get diversity of thought from every single person at that company by adding more diverse perspectives. So that's how much it increases, which is incredible.
You know, when we were used to hire at Amazon, it would be a bit of a red flag if everyone agreed to hire a person. Like it was like, wait a second, nobody sees any significant issues, and I think that's a healthy way to look at decisions. If sure, there are some no-brainer decisions, but some of the more complex ones, if there's not a diversity in how we might tackle that, it could be a sign that we haven't thought about the problem deep enough. And so I like how, you're pointing to studies that show that you can actually elicit that diversity of thought if you have some tipping point of a third. That's good to know.
Pooja, you were going to say something, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to this though, but it's this whole idea of a zero-sum game versus the win-win, right? It's the same way we looked at poverty. If all the rich people gave everyone else their money, would it be a zero-sum? But it's not, right? Because they're now going to spend that money on the same things that these people make, and it builds and it multiplies. The same thing applies to diversity and inclusion, right? It's never a zero-sum game. So I think it's being able to look at it that way. And one of the things we've been doing is looking at it not just as a community or social responsibility objective, but as a business objective. Why is it not equally important as a financial objective for creating more revenue or a strategic objective for finding a new customer? It delivers the same value based on what Tusha is saying, right? So once we started actually including these as business objectives for all of our senior leaders, that's where we saw, that's where we really saw the needle move. And I think I wanted to build on what Sean was saying earlier in terms of hiring globally and so on. The other piece is flexibility. The more we've been able to offer flexibility to our employees, that's also changed our pipeline and really improved the diversity of our pipeline.
Do you feel like now it's like table stakes? Like I need to be able to have flexible working conditions. I need to have flexible hours and even days. And yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well. And I almost see in the news, at least, like there's a divide now. Some companies are returning back to the office with some strong mandates. Some are closing offices. And, I suspect this will have, repercussions downstream of where people elect to work and where diversity can and can't be found.
I'm checking for time. I think we're doing okay for time. We will take questions in a little bit, but I have questions. I wanted to touch on something because we talked about being passed over for opportunities and everyone getting equal access to opportunities. But I wanted to share some of the experience because getting hired as a woman, as a person of color, if you're underrepresented in tech, getting hired is like really the first step, the first barrier. If you think, hey, you got the opportunity, it's great, you're hired, you're in. If you think that that's the only barrier, it's just, there's so much more once you're in and you're underrepresented that you have to battle through. And I think that's important to me that everyone hears that. And especially, if as men who are in tech, you might not necessarily experience some of these. So for an example, promotion criteria, if it's not equal, then as a woman, you have to work really hard to have your work recognized equally, or if you're underrepresented in a room, I already talked about how much harder it is to get your ideas out. Some of that's in my own head, just making sure I'm comfortable sharing my ideas, but also, there's the cases of interruptions that happen, there's microaggressions that happen, and then there's going to be a subset of people perhaps at that company who think you might be a diversity hire or a token hire, and if you make a mistake, you can feel the cost of your mistakes. Because there might be a subset of people there who think you don't actually belong here, that you were only hired because of what you look like, so those are the things that like I've had to battle through. And then it gets to your head because you're thinking like, I want to be hired because I'm really good at what I do, not for anything else. But of course I bring a diverse perspective, diversity of lived experiences. But I just wanted to shed light on that some of what I've experienced, because that's important. Getting hired really, is the first step of the journey of anyone who is underrepresented at your companies. That is what they have to go through. So creating an inclusive environment is just as important.
Can we stay on you for a second? Because I remember you were hinting at this the other day where you were in a situation where, and I wish I remember because there were beers at the time. So I don't, but I don't know if it might have been a promotion or but some feeling of like, hey, did I get this through my merit or because this was a token hire? And you spoke a little like how that made you feel as you were like carrying through your work week, and the way that like the room would, you know, treat you. Can you share that?
Yes,
again?
for sure. There's an experience actually, you know, from a colleague that I've heard who said when she was graduating, some of the men in her class said, "Oh, it'll be easy for you to get in as a woman." And she talked to me about how much that comment has stayed with her throughout her career, how hard it's been to shake it, you know, for her to believe that she's here on her accomplishments alone, you know. So that's how far a little comment like that goes. And I've, of course, my experience was really just seeing engagement survey comment. You see one that says like, someone who said as a white male, I'm not a target for promotion, which made me think, does that mean there's one person here who thinks that maybe I was hired for anything other than what I'm good at? That's how much a small one person left that one comment, but it stays with you, makes you question, you know, and then the doubts seep in. So yeah, that was my experience.
I could add a thought to this. Before Invest Ottawa, my career was really with large tech multinationals. So, you know, companies that do pretty much everything at scale. And in my own experiences, there was not enough done in supporting women through their careers, but there was a lot done in attracting very senior women into very senior roles and like really super qualified women. Almost from an optics perspective, but they themselves were excellent. So they were excellent leaders, but they weren't solving the problem, which was systemically helping women through their careers from the day they walk in the door, which I think is getting to the point you're making. I think that's so important. And how do you help women to move through their careers if they're constantly looking over their shoulders, wondering, you know, did I get this for merit or did I get this for optics or whatever? Having programming and support throughout careers is really the way to do it, because as a man, I've never felt a single headwind. Never felt a single headwind through my whole career. Always felt that opportunities were available and I would take them. I wouldn't think twice about them. I would never second guess myself. And the same has to be true for women, but it has to start early in careers. The worst thing that could happen to a woman is to be promoted into a place where you're visibly going to fail because you weren't given the earlier experiences to be prepared for what that opportunity could be. And I think that's a tragedy because these are not aptitude issues. These are issues that are related with a bad system for supporting women through their careers.
Yeah, I think, you know, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's what we see is, you know, we're able to achieve almost 50% female hiring at, let's say, the engineering student or junior level, and we can't retain them, right? Once we go up to leadership, that percentage drops dramatically. And it's really that support throughout the career, throughout different stages of life. And as a recent mother myself, now I get it a little bit more of why it's so difficult. The burden of childcare and all those things that fall on women, it's something that we need to recognize requires a different type of support through their career, right? So I think that's definitely an area. But then coming back to the whole token notion that Tusha was talking about, I think I did feel that early on in my career. But then later I realized that no, I've earned every role I've ever been in, and no one's ever gonna make me double think that anymore. For me, it's what really changed for me was I was given opportunities very early on that maybe I wasn't fully ready for, but I took them on and I delivered, right? I far exceeded what anybody else could have done. And I'm proud to say that, and I own up to it. So that's why I don't think of myself as a diversity hire, because I will prove them time and again that I'm worth that role. So that's something that I really try to promote amongst people, to stop thinking of yourself like that. But initially I used to say the same thing, that, okay, I only want to be hired based on merit, and then that's how systems should be in place. But I've actually come to terms with the fact that we're not going to change if that's how we look at it. So I actually support diversity quotas. And I know this is kind of a contentious topic, but the reason is, again, if we come back to the fundamental principles of society, you have to create demand to get supply. And I see every day how difficult it is to recruit, right? I want to recruit for diversity, but I can't. We need to create enough of a demand for there to be a supply. And if that means we're going to accept somebody who, like I talked about, in the traditional sense of qualification, doesn't meet it, but if we can provide the system that Mike was talking about to help them succeed in that role, then I want to take that chance. Because the message that one hire is now going to send to everyone else coming behind her, right? That's representation at its best. And that will now create that supply. So for me, that's something I feel really strongly about, is that to make a change, it's almost a generational level change, right? And so we have to, so there are, obviously the government, the United Nations, all of these organizations have these measures in place for a reason, right? And we're going to see that change, hopefully.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like you said, I think you change what you look for, because maybe traditionally we're not looking at all of the qualifications the right way. Now when I'm hiring, I get excited if the person I'm hiring is different from everybody else here, because I know they're going to come in and teach us something new. They're going to make us all better. So I think just reframing how you look at your requirements, for someone coming into this team, someone coming into this role, are they going to actually bring a diverse perspective and make us all better, or are they going to come in and repeat the same thing? So I think updating the qualifications and reframing it in my mind has really helped me broaden my pipelines for sure. Now I think we are at 2:00. So what I didn't do, it's been a while since I've done this in-person event, was I did want to give all of you the opportunity to introduce yourselves. Sorry, we're doing this totally backwards. Especially for Pooja, who agreed to join very last minute because Bree is not feeling well, and we hope she recovers quite quickly. And she has agreed to be on the next Better Together panel next year, so you'll hear from her as well. So we're going to turn over to questions, but could you please give a quick intro for the folks here who haven't met you?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'm Pooja Suresh. I'm Director of Corporate Strategy at Gas Stops. So we're an aerospace and defense company. We make sensors. And one of the things I'm obviously very passionate about is diversity and inclusion. So I've worked with Tusha and many others on several initiatives in Ottawa, as well as in the defense sector itself.
Yes, is that okay?
Sure. Mike Tremblay with Invest Ottawa.
Hey, I'm Sean Gandhi. I'm currently at Shopify. I'm a Ottawa-born, but left for the US for a little bit. And then I came back and actually met Mike, who helped me land in Ottawa again. And yeah, I think of myself as a dad who's trying to make, help see if the world can be a little bit better place for my kids. So lots of time for things like this.
I'm glad Sean's back in Ottawa, because I knew Sean from university days, and I plan to involve him in a lot more initiatives in the future. And Mike and Pooja and we already work together on quite a few initiatives. So we'll turn it over to see if anybody has any questions.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. One of the things you guys talked about was, taking the time and making a space when you're an ally, or speaking out, maybe if you are the person who's, dealing with discrimination or whatever it is. From my experience, sometimes when that happens is that you become that token person and people keep tapping you on the shoulder. and you become that voice, whether it's in your company, your community, and sometimes that can be tiring to always have to be that person. Could you maybe share if you've gone through that experience and how you kind of make decisions of what you say yes to, or how you navigate it when it's maybe becoming overwhelming? You want to go, Judy?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. For me, you know, what I've really focused on is, for me, change happens if I'm not the one having to do that. Okay? So it's constantly about recruiting others and everyone else. How do you spread that allyship, right? How do you create that network of allies? So some of the things that work for me are, especially initially on, is really premeditatively doing it. So example, I'm going into meetings, you know, I talk to my allies who are in that meeting, right? And I'm like, okay, you know, this is what I expect of you, whether it's to support me or to support someone else. And, you know, once you do that a few times, you only need to do it a few times, and then it catches on. So those are some of the things that for me at least have worked. Is, you know, I've taken that, I look at that consciously, and I say, okay, how do I now, you know, raise these other allies to help?
I might offer a couple of thoughts here as well. This morning when we went through the F factor, I mentioned that having a diverse board has had a pretty important effect on our company. We have Susan here, who is our initial chair for our female founder women-owned business subcommittee, and Jennifer is with us, who is extremely active on audit committee, but extremely active with our women-owned business subcommittee right now. Tone from the top matters, and it isn't just management. Like, boards matter. Developing values as a company matter. That was actually very important to us. We spent the time with our staff generating values. As we did the strat refresh this past year, the team took the time to go from words like collaboration and future focused to actually explicitly writing out what the words mean, so we understand what that is. And then we spent a lot of time with learning circles to support diversity, so we have a really good understanding. And we had really good turnout from our staff to actually engage and participate in training. So I think that those things, when they're done regularly, they're done purposely, when people walk the talk and really engage in it and make it real. Like, we signed up for the 50-30 challenge as a company. We do manage and track how we're doing. If you're not going to hit your diversity goals, and I agree with quotas too, like I really do. I think for our board, we would not be at the level that we're at today were it not for making it a priority. And that's true for a management team as well. So if you're having a hard time finding diverse board members, just keep looking. Like, you don't have to compromise, just keep looking. If it's going to take longer, no one's going to get hurt in the process. In the end, you'll be hurt if you have a bunch of white Caucasian males sitting around the board table making all the decisions in a community that does not look like white Caucasian males around the table, especially when you're an economic development agency. It's not going to work, right? It's just you're negating most of your market by doing that. So I think those are a few of the things that we've done. We're not perfect, but we have learned a lot. And we have a lot of like-minded partners that have helped us to see this as well.
I have a question from online. What would you say is the most difficult part of implementing DE&I initiatives, especially in engineering or STEM?
Could you repeat it one more time?
What would you say is the most difficult part of implementing DE&I initiatives, especially in engineering STEM?
I think there's a lot of challenges, but if I had to say one, it's just keeping the momentum. Sometimes, you know, you start something and then, you know, as the previous question, sometimes it's just a few people pushing it along. So how do you kind of build that momentum? And for me, at least, one of the things that really worked, and we touched on that earlier, about how do we get more men to support these initiatives? What's really worked for us is positive reinforcement. And, it seems pretty simple. That's what all humans respond to, but it's really as simple as that. How do you reframe something from a threat to an opportunity? And that's what humans respond to best. So what we did is, and what we continue to do, is highlight positive stories of allyship. There might be, very little things that people can do, but when women talk about how a male ally helped them, and it seems like something so simple that the male ally did, but had so much impact, they see it, right? They're like, oh, this is something we did, and we can continue to do that. And it's so much more inspiring, and it brings people into the conversation a lot more when we kind of take that positive notion to it. So at least that's what's helped us build momentum.
No, I agree. I think related to the previous question as well, because the pipeline is really small when it comes to like women in engineering fields, so you're starting at a point where you are quite underrepresented. And if you're organizing these events, it really will get to you. It's tiring. Sometimes that's not recognized labor depending on the company you're at. That's not the kind of labor that might get you promoted, for an example. So I agree with Pooja and others. Creating more allies goes such a long way. That's worked for me quite well. Creating just more allies, more people who are behind this goal with you, and getting the men in the conversation has significantly helped. And then we put things into place in our interview process, for an example, where we talk about DEI in our interview process. So there's DEI questions that we ask to make sure, regardless of your gender, every single person we hire is respectful, will create an inclusive environment for everybody else here, so that you're filtering out or filtering in the right type of people who will come here and be allies for each other. That's been really helpful as well. Any other questions?
What do you think is the role of kids going from university into the workplace, so Generation Z and Generation Alpha, in promoting diversity in the workplace?
My baby boomer mind is spinning right now.
I know. I was like, I don't know if I can relate.
I don't know how many generations of difference that is, but that's a hard one for me.
I think for me, I'm always amazed by every student cohort that I work with. And I, for me, like what I see as things that I, tolerated or withstood in my time because I just needed a job. And, that was what was on top of my mind. And then I see these student cohorts come in asking for so much more, right? It's no longer, work and life, it's all blurred, right? There isn't that separation anymore. And that means you demand certain things from the place you work at, from the people you work with. So for me, that's inspiring, right? I see that and I'm like, yeah, why am I not asking for those things? Why didn't I ask for it earlier? So I think it's just, keep doing that. But the other thing would be just a little bit of patience as well with us, as we try to change things, of course, contribute to it, but also be patient and not give up hope. And I specifically say that when I'm trying to recruit people for STEM and students ask me, okay, how many senior women leaders do you have in your organization? And if the stats are not good enough, I'm like, just be patient. Don't give up on us just because of that yet.
Pooja, can I just build on? I just strongly agree. And I had to think about that one too for a while. I haven't been in that mindset for some time. But anyway, I think demanding, like, what is my growth path going to be? What are you doing to, I think, Tusha, you mentioned it's not just getting in the door, but once I'm in the door, like, what programs do you have for underrepresented minorities? What support will I get? Who's going to champion my success in that company? And then if if you're not getting good answers, then, you know, it's easy to say, we'll move on and find someone who does. I know it's not easy, especially right now, but I think, you know, having strong demands on explicit growth paths will help change employers' behavior on what they need to do to hire new talent.
I think we might be we're coming close to time. So I would like to say a big thank you to Sean, Pooja, and Mike for agreeing to do this panel with me. And thanks to all of you who are here for participating. Have a good afternoon.
Putting it together.
Before we let our speakers slip away, I just want to say thank you, all of you, for that incredibly rich discussion. I hope that you took as much away from it as I did. I know there are many people online who are also with us. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I know Monique Manache was hoping to get back in time to do the closing land acknowledgement ceremony. Unfortunately, she is not able to return. So from the bottom of my heart, from all of us at Invest Ottawa and our entire community, thank you. A huge thank you to everyone who helped put on today's events. Audrey Wilsey, who's done just heroic work, not simply around these events, but so much over the last few months that she's been with us. Katie Leclerc, our marketing and communications team, our baby team, Lisa, Emily, Kevin, I mean, the entire team, all of our Invest Ottawa champions, Mike, the board, the members that are with us today. Just thank you all for being a part of this journey. And we hope you'll join us at other International Women's Week events coming up. Watch that website, investottawa.ca/IWW. Thank you for being a part of today.